It's not live yet. All right, now we're live. All right. So, all right. Thought I was live there. I hit it. Now we are currently live. All right. So first things first, giving a big shout out to U.S. ARC. They fight for our rights to keep the reptiles and amphibians that we hold dear to ourselves. Phil Goss, really good. You know, whole organization. What I said before was better. It was on. You heard it, Brandon. I messed it all
Yes,
up.
I did. It's okay. I'm not sure
fight,
what happened either.
Yeah, they fight for our rights to keep all the reptile amphibians we love, though. You know, they fight these little laws that, you know, show up per state. Go Phil Goss. Great organization. Please support U.S. ARC as usual, as I'm sure most people here do. And then next weekend is the Reptile Super Show, ran by Rami. This is going to be the biggest reptile show event, pretty much like ever, or really just biggest animal expo ever. They're having aquatics, birds, whole reptile building, and then succulents and plants. It's going to be really, really cool. That's next weekend in the Pomona Fairplex. Today, I got Brandon here. I'm sure a lot of people here know Brandon. You know, people just popping in from the Hognose community. Brandon's a friend of mine, and we're going to talk Hognose. Recently, I've been seeing Brandon's been having some good clutches. So, Brandon, tell me what your strategy was for this season. What did you do? And you got some nice clutches. So there you go.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, hi, Brandon with Melo Hogs. So like Jeff's mentioned, I had some pretty good clutches so far this year. So I had Bub's Daddy 66 het axanthic female, or male, that was produced by Miracle Reptile, Nate Miracle. That was paired to a Arctic albino from John at Fathom Hogs. And that was her second year breeding, but the first year breeding for the male. And it was 17 perfect eggs from her for, like, last year she did really well. She did about 16 eggs, but she had a couple slugs. But this year they produced some really awesome clutch. It was like beautiful. I should probably post those. It's been a heat wave lately. It's been up to 90 something, 95. So it's been like I've just been trying to keep the animals cool and myself cool too. But I also had the same clutch that my Storm Cloud girl that I made from you originally. The first pair that I ever got was from you. It was a Conda triple het storm snowburst. Jeez, the heat's getting to me. To a het Storm Cloud 50 het albino. And I remember at the time I was thinking I didn't want the female to prove out kind of a little bit because the odds are so much more crazier. And in turn, actually, she didn't. And I have the Storm Cloud, so I'm actually pretty happy about that one. But, you know, they produced 16 eggs that looked all great. So I'm pretty happy so far because my first clutch with the Lemon Ghost stuff didn't go so well. I have about 4 eggs out of that one that were good. So far, so good. But I always start a little bit late in the season, it seems.
Yeah, what was that LG female lineage? Is that
she's Court Gaverth Lemon Ghost from Ectotherm Empire.
Okay. All right, what's the father to that one?
The father was a 75% Lemon Ghost at Sable from you. Yep.
Okay. All right, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought that was him. Any chance?
Yeah, he did a good job.
Any job on a second, or any chance on a second clutch from her? Do you notice any like swelling?
It's too late now. She wouldn't have had one. It's been about a month, so she would have swelled up and done that by now. So I'm thinking that's a no from her.
Yeah.
I'm kind of happy.
Every now and then you get those spaced ones. I've had one spaced like 60 days apart before.
Well, I'll look out for that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, it's not
the same female.
It's not super common. I attribute it more to, I think, nutrient intake and then the female's recovery. Because I've had some that were kind of like a little on the small side, and then you keep hitting them, and then there's like, oh, it's not going to produce a second clutch. And then 30, 40 days later, she's getting big again, and then 60, 65 days. But typically, yeah, it's within like a 32, 33, 34, 35-day window from the first clutch that they're laying the second.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that was the girl who had that last egg that was stuck at right at the end there. And I think we talked about it. You thought it was like binding to the oviduct, which some people I probably don't think or know that can happen. So, I mean, you know more about it than I do. Then if you want to dive a little deep into that for a second. Because, you know, people try to squeeze eggs out and try to poke them out in all different ways. I'm not saying that those necessarily might be wrong in certain situations, but in what, like, I sent you, you were like, oh, that looks like it's this scenario with the binding. So definitely was helpful that I, you know, just try to massage her instead.
Yeah, because that's been common, because so many people are breeding hoggos now that you're going to run into these cases where a female is unable to pass an egg or gets, multiple stuck in her. Sometimes it's exhaustion. Sometimes you have to get adhered to their oviduct lining. The oviduct is very, very thin, and so it's easily to get, the egg get twisted in there. They can get distended. They can get lodged in there. And I've had ones where it's like, and everybody's probably who's had an egg-bound hog has tried to push them out. Get these ones where you just can't really get it to budge, and those ones are very dangerous because you don't want to force it. Because if you try pushing it and it just springs back to where it was, that means it's caught in the oviduct. And I've had ones like that. You massage them around, and especially if you run them on antibiotics. Antibiotics really helps with the inflammation, and then sometimes they correct themselves. Like I've had one this year, 2 were like that, and then gave her antibiotics, kept massaging her, not every day, but at least every other day. And after a week, they were down by her vent, and I was able to push them down. So it's a tough one. It is actually at the Reptile Talks. There is Dr. Scott Stahl was there. He's one of the leading herp vets, and I was asking him about egg binding and his approach to it. He actually has it's almost like I was like, is it like a colonoscopy? And he's like, yeah, kind of like that. He takes a little camera and he goes, he's actually been able to go up inside and then, extract the eggs through just with a camera and a little grabber.
In hognoses or just in like certain species of snakes, just for example? Really?
Hognose, yeah.
That's interesting. That's pretty cool to think about.
Yeah.
Because I was. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you could. It's not like he's been like it's not. It's unfortunate because he lives in like Virginia, but he says I could ship snakes to him. So some people are able, if you're able to get a hold of him, and you can ship snakes to him to have this procedure done and then have them shipped back. But he says it's working about 50% of them. In some cases, he has to do surgery. I can't remember the exact percentage. I was talking to him over dinner, and I think he said it was like with the ones that are like that appear stuck. Like they're binded. He goes, I think about like 40% of those, if I'm not mistaken, needed some type of minor surgery. But a lot of times you can get them with the camera method.
That's pretty cool. No, all I was gonna say was with the lemon ghost girl, I got lucky because the egg actually it was right at her vent. It wasn't coming out in that situation, and then a few days later, it actually did eventually come on out. So I got lucky in that regard, at least.
Yeah, it helps. When they give when it's like just by their vent and there's only one stuck, or especially if there's only 1 or 2 stuck, I always tell people not too many people because they hear too many horror stories about because there's severe egg binding cases, and then people will be they hear like, oh, you have to rush them to the vet right away, they're gonna die, and that's necessarily not true. I've had ones with eggs stuck in them for quite a while. I've also had ones though where they had a couple eggs stuck. They eventually pass them, and then they do die afterwards due to blood poisoning or stress. That is more uncommon. But generally, rushing them to the vet if they only have 1 or 2 eggs stuck in them, it's a lot of times the vets will actually send them back home, and they'll tell them to basically soak them and give them time. And sometimes they give them the oxytocin shots. There was just a group chat I was in where somebody was mentioning about that, and it's funny. It didn't turn into an argument, but somebody just said oxytocin doesn't work on snakes. And then there's other person that said they had success with oxytocin. Of course, they didn't really like to hear that because they had success with it. But the oxytocin, it causes and enables contractions. So you have to give it to them right away. You can't give it to them a day or 2 after they're egg binded. You have to give it to them pretty much while they're still in the process of laying for the best effect. But the thing is, that's not even the proper hormone to get snakes to go into contractions. I can't remember. It's actually I have the article. I'll post it on my story later. But the thing is that hormone isn't readily available. So oxytocin is the next best thing, and it doesn't work that great. But in a lot of cases, the oxytocin isn't going to help, especially in the cases where the egg is twisted up and everything. Contractions aren't going to help untwist it. It's going to be very limited cases where oxytocin is going to work. And then you also have, again, do it very quickly. So,
which, I mean, it's kind of important with the LG girl. I did notice I was watching her. So for the duration of the time that I thought she was going to lay, she was just sitting still. But then there's like eventually a point where you kind of look at the animal and like recognize that they are like no longer in lay mode and they start going into cruise mode and acting like normal. And it's obviously not normal when they have an egg still stuck in them, but I kind of started going like, okay, something might be up. And when like she kind of stopped being in that lay mode, is there a difference? Like, are there some that will just continue to try to push out that egg until like it just won't go out, or like do most of them end up going into like that kind of cruise mode in your experience, like seeing that?
Some will lay there for a while, but it's hard to say if they're really going to contractions because you know what I mean. Because they're just kind of laying there in this like catatonic state. They're not really moving. And I have had some lay like that for like 2 days while they had one like a couple close to their vent or lower down. But they eventually, at some point, if they can't get them out, give up and they carry on with their lives because they need to get nutrients and stuff. And sometimes they can pass those eggs later. Actually, a decent amount of times they can. Liquid calcium can help too. You just don't want to use the one with D3. And here's an interesting one, Brandon. Remember we used to go on like iNaturalist? There's actually an iNaturalist of a female hognose. You can tell crossing the path has like 2 eggs stuck in her. So it does happen in the wild, which is like, it's probably like very uncommon, but it does happen in the wild even.
That would be interesting to see. Yeah, no, because I'm guessing, yeah, with them being in captivity, we're able to control it a little bit more. But in the wild, I feel like they probably have more natural instincts and parameters to go off of to actually like attempt to find locations to lay eggs. And like, you don't know what actually caused her to be egg bound. She could have ran into a predator or something like that. So outside, there's so many more variables and things, if you think like in that regard, at least.
Yeah, that's true. There's definitely a lot more variables that could interfere or disrupt. They definitely.
I wish there were more new studies on them, ones that were like just done like with hognoses currently in the wild in their current range. Do you know of any of that might be going on?
They have, you know what? It's like I feel like a lot of those studies, while they're definitely published, once the results are there and they become, public, before then, I imagine that they would be willing to share information, but they're more on the, academic side of things. So, like, I've asked them a few questions, The one guy, though, I didn't really pursue that much because I just messaged him through Messenger and he's just never seen it. It's kind of like when somebody sends me like a request and I just don't see the request for 1 or 2 weeks, so I don't check my requests all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm sure there's actually a lot more data that they're not completely sharing or it's just not ready. I know in the Minnesota study with like Erica Haugland and Chris Smith that they would find these females when they were gravid, they would stage nesting sites. Now they didn't go to detail. I'm sure they weren't being invasive and then trying to dig down. But they had radio trackers on them, and they'd find them staying in these locations, probably sloped hillsides. They're excavating out little burrows and testing out the temperature in the ground and just trying to find and make a nice cavity that's comfortable. And once they have it, they probably go in and out, tilling it, dig around, come back out every now and then, bask. And then when they're finally ready, days before, or a day before, a couple days before, they go down in there, get comfortable. And when the contractions start or their eggs drop, essentially their water breaks, they lay. And so they seem like they are staging their nesting sites probably like 2 weeks or sometimes a little more up to laying. So, but
yeah, I've noticed that because I give them the lay box the moment they came out of shed, usually like for their pre-lay, and they immediately just get to go into town inside of it. So it's like it's cool to watch. I wish you had a bigger, like if it was manageable and reasonable to put them inside of like a large tub to let them lay just to see how they excavate it, it would be cool. But obviously you can't do that for everyone. But it would be cool to see.
Yeah. I've done it with like 16 quart tubs, and one's a little bigger. I'll make the whole thing. Sometimes I make their whole enclosure, and there are benefits to that because sometimes they're just not comfortable with the egg box. Like I have a female right now. She's laying outside her egg box. She's going in and out of it, for the better part of like 10, 12 days. And for whatever reason, now she's laying behind the egg box. She just didn't like it. And if I notice that they're not utilizing their egg box all the time while they are gravid, and you think well, they've had a prelay shed and you know they're coming up on laying, I will sometimes turn their whole entire enclosure into an egg box. Or if it's getting close to laying and I notice that they're being like pretty restless and they're not staying in their egg box a lot, I'll start taking a bunch of hands of cocoa coir or sometimes sphagnum moss and just throwing it all in there and making it moist underneath the egg box and then in the back so they can maybe find another spot. For some reason, they don't like the egg boxes every now and then. I've had 2 do that this year.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I mean, because I have, what's it called? I have a sable head oxide that was paired to an Arctic lavender toffee that produced me some, Arctic Mai-Tai 50 head oxides. And if people don't know what oxide is, that just means hyposable. So she barely looks gravid at all, but she went through a prelay in the appropriate amount of time cycle, and she's just like a longer snake. And she gave me 6 eggs last year. So even if she makes like a smaller clutch, like that girl, she just keeps going in and out of her lay box, and she'll be like taking the dirt out and then putting it inside of her like moss, or not her moss, her shave aspen, and she'll just keep shoveling it out of like the lay box while like, all the other ones don't do that. And it's just weird because that girl, I can't put her on coarse aspen. It has to be shavings because I put her on coarse aspen and she would just eat it. She'd shovel it into her mouth. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing ever. Like, yeah, like only snake that I've had do it. But like, I came in twice and she was just thrashing with her mouth open, and like, you know, when they slither backwards and kind of look like they're dying and it looks awful and you're like, what the hell's going on? She just was spitting up mucus and aspen, and I was like, this is really weird. What's going on? So I like helped her out. I gave her a soak and everything, put her back. She started doing it again and more aspen. And I was like, what's going on? So I switched over to the shredded stuff and it didn't happen again. She just shovels mouthfuls of coarse aspen, and that's just how the snake is. We have some questions actually, but yeah, no, I'm like, that is just like, I was like, this is the weirdest thing ever. I was like, what is wrong with this snake? But she's just particular with how she likes things, I guess.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and that's a big negative on my like coarse aspen sandy chips. Like I always say, they're
I love them.
The least problematic substrate. You got one. Okay, yeah, I forgot to turn up the comments. You think this is my first time doing this shit, but anyway, yeah, we got SoCal, Herps in here. Could egg binding be caused in captivity by a lack of muscle tone since our habits are contained? I'm sure that makes some sense. What do you think, Brandon? I mean, there's definitely some logic behind that one.
No, it could be. Also could be like with how much people are overfeeding their animals and stuff, the size of the animals themselves and whatnot. So the animals, the 2 females that I had that had really amazing clutches this year, one was, let's see how they were out of brumation. So out of brumation, there was 212 gram, and another one that was 318. So one was a big girl, but she's like 5 years old, and she's had 3 or 4 clutches herself. So she's like a big mature female. She made this shed. So like she's a big girl.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
Yeah, so she's a big girl. It's the Arctic albino I mentioned from John at Fathom. Originally. She ended up with me, but what's it called? And then this girl, who is actually, I'd like to keep in the sheds. This is the Het Storm Cloud from Jeff. So this is her 2nd year breeding. She made a Storm Cloud last year, which was awesome. And some cool sable condos. But those eggs came out really, really awesome. And I'm just like, I'm excited to see it because you asked me kind of in the beginning what I ended up doing. And first year you told me, I kind of just stuck to it, where I just was using smaller prey items, feeding them more frequently, like fuzzies. I would do like 4 fuzzies every 3-ish days, 3 or 4 days. But I would switch to like 2 hoppers, and then I would do like 1 small mouse every like 3 or 4 days. And then I would do like 4 fuzzies, and I would just like keep switching it up. And not to say that was like what might have helped, but I just think that giving them like a proper kind of rotation of nutrients, even like with the different sizes, just help their system kind of keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, that sable head oxide girl, back on her. Did you breed her this season?
Yeah, so she's the one that got paired. She's already been paired to the Arctic lab toffee.
Okay.
So it's been, the weird thing though is it's been about 25 days. So she already had her shed and stuff like that. So it's a little bit early. That's how early like the lemon ghost was, where like the other girls were around like 29 days to 30 days when they had their pre-lay. So it's like, hopefully she's okay. And the only thing that might worry me is that was like a ovulation shed. So I'll see if she wants to like get back into it with the male if I pair her up. But she's been going through the lay box, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. No, it's always good to pair them after a shed, even if they have a lock. Like they have a lock and then they shed out. Like again, a couple weeks later, I usually pair them again. That's like a instance where I usually get like double locks, because a lot of people know I'm like a one lock dude. It's like once I got a lock, I get the male out of there and I start feeding them both up.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was like going for. I saw that. Like the only ones that I haven't seen, which I mean I'm pretty bummed about so far, is the quadruple A, the Arctic albino axanthic anaconda that was paired with the Bub 66 albino. I didn't see a visual lock on that one, but she is kind of like getting a little bit more gravid. I think I talked on the last podcast that we were on about that pairing. I was pretty excited about that one, because that could make super Arctic, super Conda snows, and those would be cool to see.
That would be pretty neat. That's a good one, because there's not a lot of that. You probably got a good.
They've been made, I think.
What was that?
I think they've been made so far a couple of years ago. I think Last Carlson made some.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Last Carlson. I call him a Lassie because he's got the E at the end, but I think it's Lass.
Whichever it is. I don't mean to say the name out, but I just remember seeing them and I was like, oh, those are pretty cool. And I mean,
Lass had some cool stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say with they make some of the blue steel stuff too, like the Super Arctic frosted stuff as well, right?
Yeah, he's got. Actually, I got some Hognose from him. That's what I got. I got frosteds from him because there's different frosted bloodlines out there. That's the thing too. It seems funny because people in Europe and the United States that have the frosted stuff, it seems like they've had these projects for a little bit and they outcross them and they of course bring them back in to hit visuals. But there's a little kind of pockets of areas where some people have, like, I'd say probably a little unrelated frost from one another, or caramels too. And so Lass is one of those guys, and I got a few from him.
Yeah, there's a few lines. Like I know it's weird because we've talked about frost in the past, and I mean you have this running theory with it. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, the theory is jacked up. Oh, I got more news from that one, Brandon.
Yeah, because I love talking to you about this because it's so funny because it's a very nuanced thing that people would probably never even notice. But on one of your frosts that you listed, the pairing was a frost to a caramel with no hats, but it was a visual frost that you were selling. And the fact that you pair frosts to only caramels and get frosts is pretty interesting for something that's supposed to be a double hat.
Yeah. You know what? Like I have an axanthic caramel conda male, and he's supposed
frostbite
to be
conda.
It's a frostbite conda, and he's supposed to be a hypo too. He's supposed to be frosted, but the funny thing is, man, it doesn't have any of the frost characteristics. He has like the pretty red pupils, just like a caramel does. He's very light. His belly is like a top, like light creamy brown. All of his colors point to him actually being just a caramel. Now I bought him as a frosted, but here's the thing: the price list, I got it from Fleet. The price list was all jacked up. I'll have to go back and look at it. The hypo caramel axanthic conda was listed cheaper than the just the caramel axanthic conda that were on the list. So I got them and I looked at them and I was like, hey, I think these are just caramels, because based off of my eyesight that works, these are caramel axanthic condas. And he goes, no, they're definitely 100%. They're hypo also. And I'm like, they're not. And then he's like, no. He goes, they can't not be hypos. And he goes, they're also hypo. And I'm like, these things don't have any frosted-esque, appearance to these phenotypes. These things, they're very light.
Yeah.
They're in my quarantine section, but I can't really show you easily. I could get pictures. But trust me, these things meet all the criteria of caramel and not frost. Well, I took one of those males and I bred it to, a skull-faced Conda het frost. And I got like 14 eggs to a skull-faced Conda het frost. So let's just focus on the het. So it's supposed to be a double het hypo caramel, okay? And I bred it to this male that I'm telling you is a caramel. He's a caramel. He's a caramel.
Not a frost.
Yeah, I got only frosts from the clutch and non-frost. I swear to God. They just had it out. Then they're like, some people are like, oh, some caramels and frost, you can like confuse them. I was like, no, dude, these things are frosty as frost can be. Like they're dark. They're fucking really dark. And they're almost like anery looking, kind of like gray dark. And these are frost. And I got like 5 or 6 of those. And then the rest are all normals. So it's like, yeah. As far as like, there's no anything that I would consider a caramel in there at all. No hypo, just frost. So if this thing is double het and mine is like at least supposed to be, let's say you made a mistake, it's supposed to be at the very least het hypo. It's supposed to be a visual hypo. I'm not ever hitting hypos. But then to make it worse, Brandon, I had like 2 het caramel females. And these are like outcrossed ones that like, hey, if they were a chance to pass that hypo, it'd be very low. You know what I mean? Because they're being outcrossed. Yep. And I bred those 2 ladies back to a caramel Conda male I made. And I did get some frost. I got some caramels. And I actually did get hypos out of both of them. It's very weird. And it's very weird, man. It's like throws like, even my geneticist friend that we talk about it, he's like, it's got to be a form of linkage. That's what it is. It's linkage. And they're very hard to separate. But I don't know, man. It's a very confusing one. And basically, by linkage, it means like wherever the allele for the caramel gene is, the allele for hypo is like really close next to it. And so they're often passed on together. So once they're connected, they're hard to disconnect, which would make sense why you get them commonly together. That's only there's some type of linkage, but man, it's friggin' weird.
So technically, frost, in a sense, if you get that linkage, could just literally be frost, as in hypo and caramel, would just be a one het gene because it comes together, and like that scenario that you're mentioning.
Yeah, kind of. That's a good way to look at it. Now they can sometimes like break apart, but the one thing I learned from my friend Ryan was like we always consume, because like this stuff is safe to be assumed, because even when you learn in biology, we inherit one allele from each parent. So when they talk about it singularly like that, you think, oh, one allele from each parent, 50-50 coin toss, is, passed on to, the fertilized offspring. It's getting passed. That's how the genes are getting passed on. Well, no, it's not actually what happens. A lot of times, little clusters break off of a loci, off a location of a chromosome, and there can be multiple alleles that commonly get contributed with other ones. So it's not always 50-50 per each allele. Sometimes they break off in little clusters, and then those clusters are common for that kind of code to break off together all the time. But the weird thing is, too, the other thing that's weird is, about the whole frosted thing. It's like, well, hypo and caramel are both melanin depleters. So they're in a...
Why does it end up looking better? Yeah.
Yeah, then the double visuals got more melanin. So exactly, that'd be like breeding like a caramel to like a hypo or sorry, no, that's exactly what a toffee belly, let's say, to a hypo, and then the double visual is like dark.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, like in any of the sense, like what do you talk about? Because especially with the different lines of like what seem to be out there with frost, like I know you probably have like 2 or 3 at this point, but it's like some of them can be really dark while other of like the frost lines are like extremely light. Like I have an 8-year-old frost male that's right there. Actually, he's 7.
All right, so this is a small dude. He's hard to tell, but this is from that caramel exanthic Conda to the double het frost. And this is what all of my visuals look like. And you can tell that's a frost. Or so, yeah, it's a frost.
That's not caramel.
Not caramels. Eyes are dark as the Dickens.
Yeah, the pattern is
grayed out.
dark to be a caramel.
Yeah. And then
The belly's probably. Yeah, look at that. Oh my goodness. And that shouldn't be there technically. You shouldn't put that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be happening, but it is. All of them, man. It happened every single day. And then, like, you know about that caramel conda. Those caramel conda females, I bred into a caramel conda male. That offspring from that male, offspring from that father, were able to make frost and hypos. But that male bred to these caramel conda females just always yielded all caramels every time. But then when I bred a frost from rotten apple lineage, so completely unrelated, those just popped up out of the blue out of that dude's collection, probably from generations of past hets that went unnoticed. So they're very outcrossed. And I took that frosted male, rotten apple lineage, bred to these two caramel conda females, and out of 17 eggs, every single one was a frost. Every single one. Dude. And they look like that guy pretty much. They're very dark. They're very dark. These can't be caramels. Like, unless if they're caramels, that means frost is just a dark version of caramel. That's all that would mean then.
No, but it's too variable and they pop up like too differently within the clutch. Like the gene, how would it just be like a dark carrot? Like logically,
I don't think it is. I think it has something to do with the linkage, and then when there's the two together, it interferes. What Ryan was telling me is like basically all these things these mutations interfere with protein pathways, and these protein pathways are contributing to melanin production, and they affect it probably in a similar way, but meaning the hypo and caramel. But when they're together, this inhibiting probably gets messed up on both sides of it doing it, and then it's actually not as extreme. So you're getting that caramel complete effect, but the protein pathways are getting inhibited differently because of the hypo there. It's messing it up, and it's actually resulting in it producing
inhibiting the caramel a little bit. Yeah, so it's keeping some of like the melanin there that shouldn't be because it has that extra gene that's attached to it, you know?
Yeah. And that other gene is most likely, he said, since they are really close, it would make sense that they're inhibiting protein pathways similarly, but them probably interfering with one another result in the animal then having more melanin.
So when you throw in stuff like super Arctic, that's like, because I mean the super Arctic frosted stuff ends up looking pretty wacky depending on what the lineage is. Like some of them have like those crazy like blues and like all of the, that's why I was named Blue Steel, I think. But it's like, do you think that an animal like that, like thrown to something that's like a completely different lineage, is gonna like overpower like one or the other, or like just start throwing out like caramels, like one that you know is like that can pop out caramels, hypos, and frosts? If you take an animal in a lineage that you know is like from frost to caramel and pops out frosts, like do you think that could like maybe like have an overpowering ability on the other one and then like the other lineage of frost?
Well, the thing is, the ones like, well, I do think this, if you take an animal that seems like this, if you have one that's frost or het frost, you're more likely to then get the frost, results. Now, if you have like the, let's say a caramel, visual caramel from the, like one of these frost pairings, frost to caramel or frost to het caramel pairings, and you do get a caramel instead of a frost. Like when I have the het frost to a caramel, I'm unable to make caramels. When I bring my caramels to het caramels and stuff like that, I'm getting usually very few frosts or none at all. And when I bred my caramels to caramels, I got all caramels. Every time. But I didn't do it like a ton, but it's enough. I mean, I got like 20 babies. I'm not going by hundreds, so it'd be better if I had hundreds. But I think if you start with a caramel from frost line, you're going to get a lot more variability versus if you have the frost from like what my experience is so far with them, you're going to have a tough time. But I bet if you kept taking them and then breeding them into like het caramel ones you made, maybe you'll start getting some of these more wacky results where you're getting some caramels and stuff. But I know like John Rice, he made, it's like permafrost stuff, which is very cool and fun. And then he had some hets and he bred some and he was producing caramels from them. He got like a caramel super Arctic and, some pretty awesome looking snakes. The Funny thing is, though, with me, I've really wanted frost. Now that I have these ones that seem to everything comes out frost, it worries me a little bit down the line that I'm going to be only hitting frost and not caramels, because caramels are really awesome and unique to themselves. Let's say if you're making like, you want to make some caramel sables, but let's say you only hit frost sables. After a while, you're going to be like, damn, I really wanted to get some caramel sable visuals to work on some other stuff. Because that's the thing, we're always looking at these projects, and everybody I think can agree with this one. You're trying to make the multitude of the most genetics combined to an extent, typically for a desired phenotype. But sometimes it's cool, especially when things get so like now that we're getting to the point where things are getting a little more convoluted and there's more genes. Sometimes you want to produce some of those animals with maybe even less genes in them, so you got a really cool phenotype. Because some of these phenotypes look really good with just a few genes versus obviously if you keep taking all the Hognose genes, if you put them all together, you're going to end up with a really bleached out white snake. Like, if you like, especially if you have like a T positive and a xanthic involved, you're going in that, direction. And if you start adding more genes, there's a lot of depleter genes in Hognose,
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because there's like a lot of genes where at this point it's like genetic testing kind of needs to come around, because there's maybe a triple het to a triple het or a quadruple het to like a triple het, and you might not. And then there incomplete dominance attached to like Arctic and Conda. So now you have Arctic Conda triple het to Arctic Conda triple het, and now you don't even know what might be popping out.
Those are the frosted Conda skull face.
I was gonna say, if that's not skull face, I must be crazy, because there is no head pattern on that at all.
Yeah, he's pretty bald.
So his pattern doesn't pick up until like mid back too, which is super awesome.
Yeah, it's actually pretty neat. The pattern on his back, it's almost like I'd have to think.
Picks up like halfway.
Yeah, he's almost like
That's really cool. Yeah, that's like spotted. That's a wacky Wait, hold on. It has like light ovals surrounding
it. It does. Yeah, it's got those halos around the saddles.
I've never seen that. That's so cool.
It's pretty neat, actually. Yeah, these are pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with those. I really like my frost.
That's like a new pattern. That's like actually a new pattern.
It is. The skull. Yeah, the skull face actually messes with the pattern too, not just the head pattern. It messes with the whole body pattern for sure.
Has me smiling ear to ear. That looks so cool. It's got the halos around the dark side. Wow. Those are going to be cool to work with too, especially when you start line breeding stuff into it and you can get the saturation to start pop. Oh, immediately start thinking about line breeding and stuff like that. That was awesome. That was super cool. So in a sense, you kind of answered the question, which was if you end up breeding those super strong lines that only end up popping out frosts, and eventually like you start breeding it to like caramels and like frost and stuff, you'll end up losing like the actual genes that can end up popping out you frost or hypos, because you only have that weird one that has the combo that seems to overpower caramels and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's why it's good to have different lineages too, like, and that's I have some pretty interesting caramels themselves, and then some of these projects are just het caramel, and then I'll end up crossing them into my frost ones too, so it's a little different bloodline, and then let's see if we got some questions here. We're going to check out the chat. Every now and then I forget to look at the chat. I can't wait to hear the shenanigans with Skullface. There's already been some, in the Discord, there's been like an okay amount. Gabriel made a pretty crude meme. It's pretty funny. I liked it. It was just a shirt. Did you see that one, Brandon?
No, I'll have to go look. Is there like a meme spot in the Discord?
There is. It's in Heems. All right. Yeah, if you want to join the Discord, most people here probably know about it. Some people don't even have Discord, but just ask for the
I
link.
just got back into it.
All right. And it says, I met JMG, my logo, and I got skull fucked because I call them skull fuckers. Gabriel said, give those shirts out to anybody that buys a skull face from you.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's that next level of customer service. You gotta actually have merch for the morph.
And Travis asked, would you still be able to produce both caramel and hypo in the same clutch if they are bonded? Yeah, it seems like it, Travis. If it's with my caramels, I have been so far, but when I have a visual frost, or a het frost, a lot of times it seems like it's very hard for me to produce a hypo or caramel. Like I can't. So far, actually, I have not been able to do it. When there's a het frost or frost involved, I've only been able to hatch out visual frost. Like out of 14, out of that one, and then there was a second clutch too. That was small, similar type of clutch. It was a het frost to a caramel egg xanthoconda, smaller clutch. But in that skull face was 14, and the other clutch I think was like 6 eggs. Now the 6 egg clutch, I only got 1 visual, and it was a frost. The rest were just hets. And then with the skull face clutch, there was like 8 visuals out of 14, and they're all frost. Is it possible? Yeah, I think so. But how many times have you seen it where somebody bred 2 het frosts together, and every visual that popped out is a frost, and then there's no hypos or caramels in the clutch? Now, when I was breeding my caramels to these het caramels, that's where I was actually able to produce caramels, some hypos, and some frost. And it's weird. It is a very unusual because these hypos, you know, they're Evans hypos / Dutch hypo, and there's no deny, like they're not caramels. There's no confusion. It's like this is definitely a hypo, and I've had that with a couple clutches now. And Gabriel's here actually that made that meme.
So in theory, essentially, if you have a frost animal that's like a visual frost animal and you only have het frosts, you're good for the time being to like try to breed those, and because you could probably pop out frosts and caramels and hypos. But say you have like a caramel and then like a frost, you could be popping out frosts randomly.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, you're probably, well, in both scenarios, I think if you're
aiming for an animal.
Yeah, if there's a frost involved, I think you're going to be almost getting all frost every time. That's what's happened to me so far. Out of now 4 clutches, and I got more coming, so we'll see. And then I bred some. I have a bunch of outcrossed ones too that are het frost, past het for other genes that I bred to each other, and I have like 4 or 5 clutches from those. And then I also took a het caramel and bred it to those het frost unrelated ones. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be more shenanigans though. I think it's going to be all frost stuff.
We'll see what happens. I'm sure you'll update us eventually once you find out. When did that stuff get paired?
Yeah, then Leo's, did you get any caramel skull face or only frost, man? Yeah, he said never mind. Tips on identifying Arctic in a clutch, especially low expression Arctics. Damn. That's the question I get a lot for a long time. I've been getting that question. You get that one a lot too, Brandon? People asking you, is this Arctic?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, so I like to, so I don't want to sound stupid, but usually I say, I think so, but ask Jeff. Because I can never be as confident as someone who's been doing this for as long as you have, and you made the gene. So it's like I have a pretty good base on it, like from what you've showed me and what you've told me, and pretty much having specific animals that only made possible this year to have Arctic babies, like a super Arctic made all Arctic babies. So having the experience of making like 30 plus, 40 plus Arctics this year, it kind of helped me like look at them and, you know, tell a little bit better first on like hands-on what they were. But originally, I mean, even to this day, I can tell you there's some of them where I even sent you that message with one of them that was kind of like a red lineage, normal looking from the triple hets that was actually like had hints of Arctic to her, and I asked you and you're like, actually I think it is. And I mean, that girl is like not even close to what you think an Arctic is. But I also have an Arctic Conda that's from the super Arctic Conda female that is like super red. I don't know if you remember me asking you, I have that really nice high expression Arctic Conda female that's like super crazy looking. And then there was a red one. You probably don't remember what they look like, but I was like, which one should I list and which one do you think I should hold back? And you're like, that one, the high expression one. But the other one was like
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, so the other one was like red, and not necessarily like everyone kind of thinks immediately like, oh, Arctic is just like it whites them out 100%. And it's like, well, on that girl, she's kind of like a palish kind of shale egg white with like more of like red tones and yellows. So it's like Arctic kind of like in that, for her at least, it looks a little bit funky. So like, I don't know if for you, the expressions, like how many different expressions there actually are of it. It's not just Arctic.
Well, so those polygenic stuff, like any type of like, just wild type, variants can interfere with Arctic. So your more greenish ones and grayish ones are going to complement and make you probably higher expression Arctics, while red phase and stuff can kind of muddy them. Sometimes it doesn't, though. Sometimes you see some Arctic with red phase, and it actually looks pretty good. They have the expression of Arctic, and then they get some like reddish flecking or like kind of like maroon burgundy colors in them, and they look pretty sharp. If you take Arctic and you keep breeding into really nice red lineages over and over, as you get to red lineage pretty strong, those Arctics, in my opinion, well, from what I've seen and witnessed, start to look pretty good with red. They can sometimes be tough to tell apart every now and then, but overall, it's when you get these first cross generation ones, because when you outcross a red the first time, what happens? They're not that good. They kind of brown out.
Yeah.
So now you're browning out an Arctic, and the features of the Arctic to pick it out are kind of Xanthic-esque, where they're like, grays and silvers and stuff like that. But we look for those like subtle things like shattered pattern on the nape of the neck, white outlining, more black concentration on the
like the white flecking on scale tips too.
White flecking on scale, especially on the side. If you notice the white flecking on the scale tip is a little higher white.
And they'll have like some of them have speckles on the saddles too. I've noticed of like little white or black speckles, which is like, I mean, that's on extremely high expression ones where it's like you should notice by now it's in Arctic with like the saddle contrast and stuff like that. Because usually it doesn't pop up on ones that are lower. It's the ones that like really look like, holy crap, that's it. That's a nice Arctic. Is that on the cusp of super Arctic? I posted one on my story one time where I was like, oh, what is this? And a few people, like, it was just a nice patch of saddles. And a few people thought it was like a super Arctic. And I forget who said it, but they were like, it was the Arctic. It was an Arctic. But I was in a DM, they said, I should have guessed it was the nicest looking version of like the worst gene over like the worst looking version of like the better version. So like they should have guessed it was the Arctic because it was like a really nice looking Arctic instead of it being like a really bad looking super Arctic.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, all right. Like I see your point. I was like, that's a good way to look at it, I guess. I don't think people really confuse super Arctic and Arctic. I was just kind of showing off how the saddles like can be so high expression.
Sometimes they do. I've seen a couple of people on Morph Market post like really high expression Arctics and list them as a super Arctic. I've seen it happen like 3 or 4 times now. And they're just really sharp there. I mean, I don't know why they don't look at the face. I mean, it's like pretty clear. And then Michael asks, is it possible that it's allelic? He's dug back on that frosted thing. That was a consideration, but seeing how, when you breed frost to caramel, you're getting like a lot of times like all frost, that kind of like goes against that, because there should be, I understand, like, let's say if there's like the frost, like if there's like, if mine's frost and then you breed it to a caramel. So if there's one frost allele, or let's say, but that's the thing, if it's like a hypo caramel, that means I should still get 50-50, because it means it'd have one allele of caramel and one allele hypo. So you can't have 2 different alleles residing, or 2 different mutants residing on separate alleles, I should clarify, for an allelic animal. It's only one pair of alleles. It's basically a mutant of, it's a different mutant of the same allele. So in allelic animal, a good example is like toffee, ball python, and albino. If you breed a toffee to albino, you get toffinos, you get visuals, but they're actually het albino, het toffee. But if you take one of those and breed it to an albino, you'll get half albinos and half toffinos, because it has one allele for both. But these things are like, a het frost, it's like, well, it could only be het for one, you know what I mean? So if it was allelic, and let's say you took a frost to be hypo and caramel, and you bred it, and you made hets, well, you're actually going to be getting pos hets. You're going to be getting 50% pos het caramels, 50% pos het hypos. It sounds bizarre, but since it is allelic, and you have one allele hypo, one allele caramel, this is just hypothetically. This isn't how I think it works at all. And you bred it to a normal, you'd be getting pos hets. And you bred these pos hets together, you'd be getting sometimes nothing, because you're breeding a het hypo to like a het caramel. And that's the thing too. Since it's interesting. If you take an allelic animal, let's say you take like a toffino, which is actually a het albino, het toffee, and you bred it to a normal, you can either get het albinos or het toffies. That's it, because they're contributing one of those alleles. And so you can't get a normal non-het. You can only get a het albino or a het toffee. But when you raise those up and breed them, you're going to be getting a mismatch of whatever. You know, if you breed those together, yeah, you can hit the visual again, just breeding these ones like that. And that, yeah, the thing is though, it's like, how is it that every time somebody has a het frost, they're only getting frost? So I don't think it's like completely fitting for it to be able to deal it based on the results.
The way you're describing it doesn't sound like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you had a frost and is hypo and caramel and you bred it to a caramel, you should still be getting like 50-50 then, you know? Because then like sometimes those alleles are going to be coming out then caramel is going to be going to a visual caramel to the het caramel versus if it's the hypo allele, then those ones will come out frost. So it should still be, we're not seeing the right odds for it. And I
was going to say, people still seem to forget that like frost is a 1 in 16, which means 1 in 16 eggs you should be hitting is a frost. And most people are hitting 2 to 3 to 4 plus every time. So it's like, how are you hitting 6 out of like 10 of them being frosts?
Exactly.
Like, can't be crazy like that every time. I wish.
Yeah. It's a very odd one. It's very weird. And then the least brought it up. This is for the Super Show, but yeah, Friday, Joe Kovac's having actually Rare Genetics is going to be there. And you mentioned that, Brandon, about genetic testing. What do you think about genetic testing for hognose traits? I think there's definitely some bad parts of it and good parts, but genetic testing for hognose.
We talked about this a little bit when I was out there last. So there's like, with genetic testing, there can be a couple good things that I think, like we mentioned before. So there's the whole, what the heck is this animal thing, where you could have bred something, right? And it could be a triple het, like say an Arctic Conda triple het something to an Arctic Conda triple het something. And you have albino, toffee, and caramel as all of the genes as the recessives, right? Those are going to be pretty hard to tell whatever animal pops out, what the actual visual is. So in that regard, I think it would probably be good for genetic testing if you were like, oh, all right, what exactly is this animal that I might have? Because some people will have that, and it could be a triple visual for the recessive, or it could just be, say, like an albino caramel, because I've had an albino caramel, and they look very pretty, but I couldn't really tell you the difference if an albino caramel, say, had like I said, toffee. It's like, I know what's there, it's called like an atom. I don't mean to like say anyone's project is bad. I'm just saying like an atom is a toffee frosted albino, and I don't know how I'd be able to visually tell that other than like doing like the actual work behind the scenes of knowing what hets are what and stuff like that. So it's like that for me in that regard. I'd probably say yes to genetic testing. But for people who want genetic testing for the sole purpose of being like, all right, well, now I know what this is, so I know how to set my prices and stuff, I feel like that takes out the whole fun of like breeding things and possets and all of like the behind the scenes work that people have been doing for quite a while, and kind of makes it more of like a linear, boring system in that sense.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. But we also like sound like I feel like a boomer mentality there. When, like they think, because they're like, oh, well, you know, this is the future and stuff. Like the thing, it's a problem. Here's the thing I don't like about the genetic testing. It shortcuts your recessives, so you're revealing the het. So essentially, they're like a scientific. It's like an incomplete, like dominant, like genotype. Kind of like, if you know what that, like what I'm trying to say there. Obviously
like,
that's
you're basically know that it is. Yeah,
exactly. You're turning your recessives basically into incomplete dominance with the price of like a shed test. Now there are some funny things with hognose though, as you know, Brandon. Like shed test, you gotta have to wait for your friggin' hognose to shed, so that could take a while.
Some of them, I know the frosted male, like I said, he's 7 years old. I don't know if this happens, like if they hit a certain age. He sheds like once or twice a year at this point, maybe 3 times. He doesn't shed often. He's just old and he's his normal size, and he's grown to whatever size he is. which I've shed. He's gone down, I think 80 grams from when I first got him. He was like 160, and now he's like a healthy size and moves around and doesn't just sit in place and stuff. And is an actual healthy snake and isn't like bloated and stuff and enjoys living. I think it's like completely different. But yeah, he sheds like once or twice. I'd say 2 to 3 times a year, not once.
That sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, the babies, I mean, they do shed like every 2-3 months. I've had some babies that'll go close to 4 months. And then the genetic shed testing, I heard, takes like 30 plus, maybe 60 days to get the results back. And then if you're doing shed tests, these things can cost like, whatever it is, 60, 80 bucks. I can't remember. But if you're testing snakes that are like, let's say it's $80 and you're shed testing an $800 snake, that's 10% the cost of the snake. That's actually quite a bit. Doesn't sound like a lot, but imagine if you want to do genetic shed testing. So it isn't going to make it, mainstream to everybody. You know what I mean? You're not going to be doing your whole collection because if you're having a lot of babies, you're going to want to do it for specific clutches. So it's definitely
like more worth it clutches. Like say if you had a Posset Swiss clutch, you'd want to try it on that right now in the current time versus like a Posset Snow clutch.
Right. But then you're going to have some people too that probably ask that for the genetic testing. They're like, well, can you genetic test the Posset? It's like, no, it's like $80.
Yeah.
It's like a $300 snake.
Yeah, that's the one thing though, I guess, where the parameters will be like, oh, is it worth it? Where again, though, it's like if a person, that's a fair point for breeder and for customers. Like, at what point, as a breeder, if a customer is like, well, I'm not going to buy from you, like if they're like, this comes about, I'm not going to buy from you unless you genetic test this, because you can genetic test this and you could be screwing me. So like maybe you did genetic test this, and it'd be like, all right, come on, people. It's just the whole like where this can end up going. Where they're like, maybe you did genetic test this and it's bad and you're only listing your prices so that people still buy it and it's not going to prove out. And people will be like, well, this person genetic tests their animal, so I'm going to go to them because I know. That's what.
Yeah, it'll become like a marketing thing. Like, hey, I genetic tested this whole clutch. But the thing is, even those kind of, if even that does happen, those people can't keep up with it. You know what I mean? Because after a while, every year, making all these clutches, wait for the sheds. Then you got to ID them, send them in. It's a little tedious. I would definitely only be doing it for select projects. And then the thing is, too, they need enough diverse sheds to identify a trait. So, like, Swiss chocolate wouldn't even get identified right away. If these new traits are getting identified right away, that would actually be really bad for the market, because then, like, people would just go and buy a het Swiss and then pay for the genetic testing instead of just getting a visual. In some cases, and I could see definitely some, tactic behind that being good, but it's also,
Yeah, but that's not for projects anymore, which is the thing that you and I talk about. It's not for the good of the project anymore. It's for the good of the pocket. And it's like, at that point, it's like, come on, like, can you not just try to take everything for yourself, people? It's like, just make cool snakes and don't try to just take everything. That's one thing that, that bothers me. I just got into this because I liked making cool snakes and I wanted to make a storm cloud, and then I saw Snowburst, and then I was getting a Conda triple het Snowburst from you because I thought the pattern was cool, and you were like, "What the heck?" Like, you were like, "What?"
Yeah. As you get a Snowburst project or a Storm Cloud, you're like, "No." You're like, "This is my first Hognose."
Yeah, I was like, "This is my first Hognose. I just think it's cool," and you're like, and then I just kept bothering you.
Yeah, I remember I even asked you. Didn't I ask you, like, "Are you sure you want to get this?" I was like, "Because there's other snakes you could buy. This one's pretty expensive." I was like, "It has genes in it," and you're like, "No, I still really want it." And you're like, "I'll probably get a female for it later."
Yeah, because I saw the potential, and then, like, I kept looking. Because I was, at that time, I was researching Hognoses for a while, and I saw like the potential. I was like, well, it has 3 recessive. I was like, and then at that time, I was like, there wasn't another het Snowburst listed on MORPH Market ever. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I'll just look into this, and then eventually, like, actually, the shed I showed, the het Storm 50, what's it called? Albino, who's probably just a het Storm now. That was that female that went along with that male, which was funny. So that was the first pair I ended up getting, that red female. That was a het Storm. So it's like, and that all evolved from actually just the way you ended up taking a picture, because it just, your next level pictures and just the way the animal like was and the way it looked, and just everything, and then the way you presented it and talked to me about it, and actually just because at that time you could have been like, no, this is just some guy who has no idea. Like I was probably a level 0 account at that time on Morph Market too.
I don't even know if they had levels at that time in Morph Market, but yeah, you would have been a level 0.
Yeah, probably not. And I know from like the seller perspective, so someone coming in and trying to buy, yeah, no, that would have been funny. I would have been like, all right, this random person, are you sure about that? But then
I do every time. Like, I'll have people message me, and they'll be like, and I've had people too. They're just really unassuming, unexpected, and so I just talk to everybody the same pretty much. I mean, there are some people where I get messages from, and I can I give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt. Every now and then, there's one. Sometimes I'll still put my time and effort into it, and then later on, I'm like, ha, I knew it. This person's like fucking crazy. I get those. I get some crazy sometimes. And then actually, Jeff Critters was talking about, made a very specific statement. What's your thoughts on Arctic Mercury, guys? So Elise in the chat's like, she loves Arctic Mercury. Would love to see one. Those are my thoughts. That's Elisa's thoughts. There's only like one that exists. I think John has it. That's it. Only John has it.
I was going to say, I haven't seen. Did he post it?
I
know that Arctic's.
He sent me the pic of it.
Condo looks cool.
I think he did post it somewhere once. Ask AJ. He would post it. But the Arctic, I mean, it makes sense that it's going to look good because, Arctic in lavender kind of looks like a Mercury. Well, some of them do. Not all of them. The Arctic labs are at a real high expression where they almost look exanthic-ish. They kind of look like Mercuries. So the Mercury is just going to really, solidify that. And then you're going to get that sharp contrast from the Arctic and pixelate it. So, yeah, it's going to look really good. It's going to look really good. Arctic and Super Arctic, they make everything better. There isn't one thing that looks worse due to Super Arctic. Nothing.
I'm biased. Huh?
What are you going to say? You said biased, and then you're like, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I'm biased. I have probably like the coolest Super Arctic, or two of the coolest Super Arctics that you ever produced in-house. So one being the Super Arctic Super Conda Albino, and the other one being Smudge that Avery has. So yeah. Super Arctic is probably the coolest thing.
Yeah. Where's Avery right now?
I think she is out there. She had a friend that came over, and they were talking about mices and stuff. So
yeah, she must be playing with mice because I didn't see her in the chat. Normally, she's like she'll jump in these sometimes. So she's there. Yeah. So I was like, she's working on art or something.
Yeah, this is lemonade Avery made. That's also mixed with berry tea because that stuff's incredible. Shout out to Avery. Skink Sing, she's awesome. Sure, that reel she has is at like friggin' 3 million views now. It's insane.
That is weird.
It's crazy. It's blowing up.
I reshared it because she's like, it's going viral. So I was like, let me reshare it and help it. It didn't need any help. I went and looked, and I'm like, what the fuck? It had like the last time I looked was like, I don't know, like 5-7 days ago, it had 1.25 million views, and it had like, or no, I think it had like 125K likes. I'm like, this is crazy.
3 million views, 235K likes right now.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. That's pretty incredible.
Bring out Avery and Crystal, real MVPs. Well, Crystal is taking a nap, and I'm not going to bother her because she's going to get pissed off. I don't need her to be pissed off at me.
I don't know what Avery's doing. But I was going to say, I'm biased. I got the Arctic Lavender Toffee, man. So it's like, Arctic Lavender Toffees are pretty awesome.
Julie's in here. She says Smudge is so cute, and she loves her Super Arctic. Yeah, Julie's got a Super Arctic, and it's really hard not to like a Super Arctic's, a black and white animal. I mean, black and white looks cool on everything. Black and white cat, black and white dog, black and white. Like, you ever see clownfish? Everybody likes the Nemo style ones, but we see the black and white ones. Those ones are really
panda
cool.
ones.
Yeah, I love those.
Panda kois are cool. Like the actual kois, the big ones. What's it called? The Super Arctic albino Super Conda girl that I was talking about. She gave me some super funky some hatchlings. What do you think causes she's getting bigger now, but I've posted her before. I just kind of call her Red, but she's the Super Arctic Conda girl that just has, so it starts on her head, it's just completely red and pink, and then it's like a full-on red stripe all down her back onto her tail. Like, what do you think is the disrupting of the Super Arctic, the black and white snake, to cause her entire back to have a solid red stripe down it almost?
Just that variation.
It's funky.
With all the Super Arctics, you get like tones of pink. A lot of them actually have quite a bit pink, but it's all masked by the black because that's where the concentration of the pigment is. And since the black is so strong and dominant, it covers up those, less strong red pigments. And then you get these other ones, like you're describing as one where there's just more excessive erythrophores, red pigment cells, and they're showing through in between, and they're popping up outside of the black, and so you can see them more visibly. And it's just a variant. Can you line breed it? Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Yeah, probably not. But, I don't want to speak in absolutes. I've seen some weird things, and I'll be sure in a couple of years because I'm onto this one thing. I mean, other people will see it soon. But, Super Arctic combined with other stuff will yield certain Super Arctics to look a certain way. Now, I think it was Elise. She asked one time, and a few other people have asked and pointed out, like, hey, your Super Arctic, like their het lab tend to be more pink, and it's yeah, sometimes. But the funny thing is, I have some Super Arctics that are het lab. They're like almost like xanthic looking. They're just black and white. And then I have some Super Arctics that are pos het lab and het lab that are really pink. So it's just that variation of that Super Arctic phenotype. Kind of like you get the ones with like the really high black and blue sides, but there's other gene combos that actually help get that reaction. So there definitely seems to be a way to influence it. Selectively line breeding, though, is just a tough route, and I don't think it's going to do much with results, there.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it, but it's really cool to see on them for sure. What is Elise saying? Cleo discovered Arctic Toffee Lab? I mean, I don't know. Whatever, what's it called? Travis Whistler is the one who bred that one, so not exactly sure who figured out what, but all I know is that they're incredible, and I love them. And I know that Dragon Herpetology at MARC, he may have one, so that'd be really cool if that proves out. Because he's showing me pictures and stuff, and it looks so similar to my male, and I have two other lab toffee males without Arctic in them, and they don't look like that. It has like such a difference. He ate, so he's probably going to be mad, but I'll take out the Arctic lab toffee, because there's probably one morph that not many people actually know about or like see, and he just shed out yesterday, so he's cool. But I remember talking to you early on, Jeff, and it's just there's so little of them that even exist. It's like hard to even like it was hard to know if he wasn't, so we kind of bred him. But,
yeah. No, I was actually surprised your lab toffee turned out to be Arctic. It was definitely a massive win.
Oh yeah, I mean when the Super Arctics popped out, it was crazy. See if I can. Is it washed out too much? All right, where is this?
If it's not, you don't have to answer it, Brandon. I'm sure you don't have a problem. But how much did you pay for that, dude?
Oh, him? He
yes.
was about $2,000.
See, people, everybody, you already know where I'm going. Like, he got this thing. It's an Arctic Lab Toffee Belly, $2,000. He's gotten over 20 babies from this guy.
No, 55.
How many?
55.
55 babies from this guy now. Well,
22
right.
from one female, 30 from the other.
I was right.
You were right.
55 babies, though. That means investment side value, like our cost average from
is holy crap.
Side, is under $50 per baby that he has invested in.
Well, from the dad's aspect. So with the mom, you know how much
from the dad's side.
So from the mom, you know how much I paid for her was $2, so that's a total of $4. And
yeah, so you basically have a dollar cost average, a little under $100 per baby, based on the investment of the 2 adults in question. So
yeah, it's pretty reasonable. You just have to make sure you get to that 2 to 3 year mark once they're breeding, and then it's pretty golden. Then you get to make even cooler snakes. Like this guy this year is going to a Super Arctic Conda that is het for toffee, which then they could make Super Arctic Toffee Condas het lab, and that would be awesome. I would very much enjoy those. Those would be cool.
Super Arctic Toffees are very nice looking too.
Yeah, and then that belly is kind of funky looking, which is my favorite part. It's kind of got like a red stripe that goes down it too. But that would be an Arctic lab toffee.
Very nice.
Which at this point, I think there is lab toffees, Arctic lab toffees, and lab toffee condos. which I mean, I just love lab toffees. So as long as people are making them and working with them, that makes me happy. That's pretty much all I care about. It's like the morph that I chose to just really, well, I didn't really choose it. The moment I saw that guy, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. And to know that there's not that many out there and that he is an Arctic lab toffee is cool, because that just means that we all get to make more, and hopefully people like them. Because like you, I forget what it was, but like with corals, they're like 100% like the albino with the albino, just T negative or yeah, T negative.
Oh, albino, yeah, albino's a T neg. Albino's like
yeah.
a T neg. I mean, the funny thing is, it's like nobody's ever tested them. It's possible that they're T positive, you know what I mean? But they're just like, because there's a spectrum to it. Because some of the albinos do have like almost like, I mean, in the snows though, you're never really seeing any like tans or anything like that. So the likelihood that it's just a very it's a T pos with almost zero melanin, but like real small trace amounts is pretty low.
Yeah, yeah.
T neg. They gotta be a T neg based on their appearance and combos.
Yeah, so then with toffee being the pos on the opposite spectrum is like with it being the 100% with the albino, I try to tell people that like toffee belly is more of like, you know how you have like a dimmer or like a shader.
Yeah.
Whereas like you can have it go from like 30% to like 75 or 85%. Yeah. It's like on a spectrum of expression. So like whereas instead of just being like the full on albino, which like corals are, which you can line breed and stuff like that with the purple extreme red and all that into it, but with the toffee and stuff, it kind of like has more expression and contrast just because it's not completely dimming it out, you know?
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah, you have more pigment there to work with. That's what like what I said earlier too, and you know, I'm sure you agree with this one. That's the problem. Like if you put too many genes together, if you keep taking away pigment, you get these more washed out snakes. So yeah, that's the one thing that is a really cool thing about the lab toffees. For one, there's probably like one lab toffee for like every 20 corals that exist. So it's a much more rare project. And then yeah, toffees offer more pigmentation because they're not removing all that melanin, and they got the dimmer analogy that Brandon just shared with us, which is really good because like you said, the T neg, it's like it's like zero or
so
turn it all the way down. There's all the melanin's gone.
Yeah. So yeah, our friends are over. That's why Avery just joined the chat finally.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Hello, friends. But yeah, no, I like to use that analogy because some people, when I'm at like when I was vending shows, they couldn't really understand what the difference between toffee belly and like albino was, because I brought a lab toffee to show people and a coral to show people, because I have my triple het lab toffee albinos, and it's kind of hard to explain to people that don't understand what those are, like the difference. So it's kind of like what I was trying to explain to people and show them in person and stuff. But it just seems like the easiest way to explain things. It's like for visuals or things that people generally use.
Yeah, no, like it's a really fantastic analogy, actually, because you could use that analogy to describe any T positive, and you could have the albino as an example, as the melanin's 0, and then you could scale up, and you could have frosted is what at like a 90. I don't know. Some of these frosted I have are almost as dark as my damn normals.
They're pretty intense.
Yeah, they're like a 95, 98. Shit, I think I have some normals that are actually lighter than my frosteds. Almost, not really.
Well, my polygenic analogy is pretty good too, I think, where it's like, imagine having a cup. All right, so imagine having a cup. It's not this cup.
That's good. Yeah.
But it's 75% full of orange juice, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your lemon ghost, for example. It's your 75%.
So like 75% orange juice and 25% water, and then you like the example, you're diluting it.
Yeah. So you could take 50% Coca-Cola, which is like just purple line or like completely outcross normal, and then pour it into the cup. And now your 75% is you keep pouring it, and now you're like, oh crap. Well, no, it's half orange juice and half Coca-Cola now. Now you got to pour more orange juice back into that cup. And now it's like, all right, now it's 75% orange juice, 75% or 25% Coca-Cola. Now you got to keep pouring more orange juice into it. And it's like, people don't understand, like with the polygenics and stuff, is like, you can outcross it, but it's going to require a lot more breeding back into it than like a year, give or take, for you to like just start calling it like, oh, it's this again. It's like that outcrossing, you have to like start taking lines and breeding them back into each other and going further with it. instead of just like diluting it the one time with the Coca-Cola and still calling it that polygenic.
That's an excellent analogy. Now the question is, what do you think that tastes like, the Coca-Cola and orange juice?
Probably disgusting, although I guarantee you someone's probably had a bar drink that has involved that.
Yeah. The Coca probably overpowered the orange juice a bit, but probably not enough.
I've had like Georgia peach Coke, and it wasn't the best. Like, I'll be honest, like it was okay, and it was like in the glass bottles too, and that's probably
what the fuck
closest.
Is that, a Hillbilly Palmer? That's like a Hillbilly Palmer.
Dude, it's got to be, but it was like it just tasted like fresh fruit and Coke, and it was weird. I think it was made with cane sugar and stuff too, but it was like, for what it was, I was like, yeah, this should have been better. But that's the closest fruit I can think of to the citrus orange. No, thank you. That's gross.
Elise is thinking she has one of her snakes might be Arctic. I say, Elise, just send us all a photo and then ask us, and we'll be like, we'll try to help contribute. And Trinity goes, I can't wait to breed the cooler stuff. Some next year. I should have lavenders in about a month. Oh, yeah, she got a nice lavender clutch. And then Kevin, he's breeding an Arctic Toxiconda with a Toxiconda. Would you be able to definitely somehow differentiate those babies or without the Arctic gene? Yeah, definitely. You'll definitely get some that are tough. But overall, especially once you get a second shed in them, I think they'll be, because I've hatched them. They're pretty easy to tell apart. Yeah, they're not.
The ones you show me.
Yeah, they're insane. They're not the easiest. They're definitely not the hardest, though. You know, if you're looking at them the first time, I could see people second guessing themselves. You know what I mean, Brandon? You know how some people get their heads about Arctic? I've had some people, not saying anybody here is doing that, but
the color on them from the Toxiconda, your lineage at least, the Toxicondas that you have, to the Arctic Toxicondas, where they get that shale white color and like that purple and deep, like rich, like kind of like jammy color. It's kind of like super easy to tell with yours, at least, what the Arctic Toxicondas versus Toxicondas are.
Yeah. So I've had a few. Well, the one thing is, like, they have those like Arctic like markers too, where they get like the flecking, and they're just like they're more white and higher contrast. I had a couple though that they're a little questionable, but by the second shed, you look at how bright and clean they are, and you have a pretty good idea, Kevin. I think it's such a great project. Even if they are somewhere tough to identify, it's a very worthwhile project.
Oh yeah, snakes that go to shows. Yeah, so Elise asked if snakes that go to shows are perma-quarantined. Yeah, they're in their own special secret sections, where for me at least, like it's for health and peace of mind. It's like they're in specific areas that I know, like that they got handled and stuff in the public and whatnot. But I'm also pretty adamant, like Jeff is, about having gloves in public and having only people that really like actually are interested in the animals and stuff like that touch. So they shouldn't actually be coming into contact with any outside like biocontaminants at all. Like if you do it right.
Yeah. Yep. And you gotta be careful. Like just keep a really close eye on the table. Wear gloves. If somebody handles something, and I've had people just reach in and grab stuff, and then those get like they go in their own section. Now, contaminating things through touch at a show, it would be extremely hard. Somebody would have to have purposely held like a sick animal before and went and tried to touch your stuff, because if they're washing their hands and like in between, like, you know, any animal they had touched, and let's say if they even touched an animal that's carrying something at a show, and they hand sanitize, the hand sanitizer isn't going to really do anything at all, especially the things like cryptosis. But passing it on via touch is like that is a bit difficult, unless somebody's purposely trying to do that. You know, and I'll tell you,
I'm paranoid enough to think that some people might.
Some people probably fucking would. There's some psychos out there. Everybody's all messed up from all the lead and heavy metals, you know, in the environment. And then you got jealousy, and then you got lead affecting your central nervous system and high mercury levels. And before you know it, they're trying to disease your collection. So I just watch my stuff like a hawk and I'm very, very careful. And then, you know, we have separate racks for children. I wouldn't. Here's the thing, though. Would that make buying a Hognose from like a show like be more dangerous? No, not really. The chances would be like is basically like a 1 in like a couple million. If you go to the show Saturday and you're looking at my stuff, and you want to buy the snake, the chance that somebody like fucking fucked with the thing is none, because I'm keeping an eye on it the whole time, and then Crystal's watching the table or whatever. Like, I'm never really taking my eye off the table, and we're always looking out for that. You know, we're looking out for the psychopaths.
Oh yeah, like what's it called? I have specific tubs for the more expensive ones, but this is the cloth I put on the table. But these tubs, well, these are just regular deli cups, but this right here is Velcro, and there's certain patches on the table. So if you even tried to lift this, it would just lift up the entire thing, and you wouldn't even be able to remove it. You physically have to start pulling it, separating it, because that's how strong the Velcro is. But that's kind of like what I do to prevent people from trying to take some of the ones off the table. Because people do at expos. I didn't really realize it, but people just walk up and grab a cup, and now I'm like, all right.
Yeah,
like,
well.
I'm like, no, even trying to talk to me at all. Like, so yeah, you got to be prepared for kind of anything. But
yeah,
I've never
and
been,
thieves too, and thieves.
Oh yeah, no, especially because I mean, some people with the more expensive ones, where they're like $1,000 a snake, and I'm like, yes. They're like, that's crazy, and I'm like, for the general public, probably, but I was like, you should see some of the things that I've. I mean, for all of us, probably, but yeah, we've all put a fair share of investment in the Hognoses. I'd like to think.
Yeah, Bows and Hogs is stealing that idea. Avery said her friend left, and then
yeah, feel free to steal the idea. It's super convenient.
That's a good idea. Don
Jeff, you could not do it. You have too many snakes.
It'd be tough. Maybe I could like make the whole entire my entire.
You'd have to space it out.
The whole entire tablecloth Velcro.
You could. You definitely actually could, though.
It'd be a pain in the ass folding it up, and then people are like putting the cups on. It's going like all the time.
Yeah. Well, then it might lift the entire table, though, if the Velcro's strong enough, or it might bend the cup. Yeah. With this, at least,
it turned into like an Eric Andre skit. Fucking everything's sticking shit.
Yeah. Well, it does lift, and then I actually have to put my hand underneath the table and then hold on, or the cloth, and hold on and then lift it. So it really is like a preventative measure to like, because yeah, you're not ripping that off the table. I think I had the Super Arctic Conda triplet girl, one of the Super Arctic Conda triplet lavender toffee albinos I brought to a show one time. She was in one of those, because I was like, yeah, no one's stealing that one, because people were like, that one's incredible. What is that? And it was just the Super Arctic that got their attention. The Super Arctic is awesome looking.
It is. Super Arctic tempts people. Somebody might try to grab, goink that.
Oh yeah.
And then Don was asking about purple people eaters. What do they look like as babies? What do you think of the purple eater, Morph? What do they look like as babies? Now, I got the very first purple eater ever made because Dan sold it. And the funny thing was, when I got it, I was like, damn, I'm like, this doesn't look that crazy, dude. Like, I thought, usually I'm pretty good at predicting morph combos. That one surprised me. I thought it was going to be a lot more extreme. It was like a grayed out lavender, and it wasn't. I could see some people having a hard time telling if they are a sable lavender. But as it got older, once it was like 2.5 years old, it actually turned really cool. And it was really unique then. And I think they look great, way better with Arctic. I think the lab sables, you need to have Arctic in every single one of them. That is, I mean, if you have a lab sable, I'm not saying like you obviously you're not screwed. Just breed it into an Arctic.
Boo. Yeah, boo the lab. No, it's like that's what I'm working on right now. I'm going for the triple, the lab sable toffee, because I feel like that. I feel like you were mentioning, there's too many like the leader genes, whereas like lab sable toffee, like even like, so for the next step in there, obviously you could throw in like the incomplete dominance and stuff like that, and like you could say skull face eventually.
There's skull face in there.
Yeah, so it's like those are gonna be like some of the newer stuff that's popping out for all of us eventually. Like I know Fathom Hogs, I think they just made an Arctic Storm Cloud Conda and an Arctic Storm Cloud Super Conda, or a Storm Super, or one of the two. But it's like those coming out and those kind of powerhouse animals is like, I mean, that stuff's like kind of cool looking, because it's like, what next, like in that sense, is like, what next step can you put into there to like make that animal look cooler? Like now that we've seen what that looks like what gene do you put into there? Because if you put an albino into that, now it's a snowburst. And it's like, how much more different does an Arctic snowburst superconda look versus like the let's say just like a snowburst conda or stuff like that. So it's like at that point, like what genes do you start deciding to like throw in there when you have animals like that at your disposal?
Yeah, no, that's why it's good to work with some of these genes where you have pigment left, like you're saying. The top.
Yeah.
I have I bred some Arctic double het lav sables. The one, she's actually really pretty, really high green Arctic, and first clutch was like half good, half bad, and then her second clutch, no reintroduction of a male, 15 perfect eggs, but they're past that toffee. So with any luck, I might have some stuff in that ballpark, but I'm working on. I got possets. I'm working with possets here. So,
yeah, but I mean, a lot of your projects you've developed over the years from possets, right?
Yeah.
You say you've told me several times, don't discount possets. You've gotten further ahead with certain things because you've had possets and didn't
definitely
just throw them to the side.
Yeah, possets improving out. Like how I just had a big one prove out, real big one. I had a Super Arctic Sable Conda. So he's a Super Arctic Sable Conda male, posset albino. And he was a descendant from a double, from a double het coral. And so he had a low chance. And he proved out. And so I have a Super Arctic Sable Conda male that's het lavender. And that's extremely powerful.
Wait, he proved out het coral or het lavender?
Just het lav. The female I bred him to is a posset lav, and I got lavs. He might be het albino. I don't know yet.
That's a crazy animal.
He is.
Wow.
Very crazy.
That's awesome. But that's an insane, like, so for example, like you just said, that's one of the most insane posset proved out. I mean, the Bubs wasn't supposed to be a super conda from you. Like, people still don't believe me on that. I try to tell them.
No, yeah,
you know what? On my story.
It pisses me off because I sold not that snake, but I sold a guy a friggin' Super Daddy male het sable. Super Daddy male het sable. And this guy got it, and the guy's like flipping out on me saying it's just a Bub's daddy. I'm like, dude, that's a Super Daddy. That thing has less pattern than yours, and this guy just won't listen to me. It's like, dude, it's like you listen to me on everything else. Why not this time? It's like
I can take her out because she was paired with the Arctic Lab Toffee last year, but no one believes me. No one believes me. But when you hit 23 out of 23 in a 1/4 odds, it's just not.
How many eggs do you have from her this year?
She hasn't dropped them yet. She is still
gravid.
More than likely. Let me see. Yeah, she's building them. She locked what day did she lock? The 26th. So still got a little bit of time.
What did you breed her to?
Oh, she locked with the Sunburst.
Oh yeah.
Male from you.
Good, and then we'll see all condas again, and there will be somebody that tells me, no, you just hit the 1 in trillion odds of like.
Yeah, it was 1 in 4 quintillions. So, this is a super conda. If it focuses, there you go. So this is a super conda with the most patterning in the world.
Look at those big blotches. That's what got me, was that it's blotched all the way down. It wasn't striped. It's striped, but not really. It's blotched. It's broken. Those blotches are huge. Somebody told me that somebody was like telling me that, yeah, I would have guessed that was a super conda. It's like, who the fuck?
No, you wouldn't.
This blotches are this fucking big all the way down the back.
She's moving like crazy right now, but there's zero chance. Like, oh, there you go. Is it sort of showing or no? Can't see. It's kind of washing it out.
Sometimes it is. There it is. It kind of goes in and out.
Yeah, it's tough. Lighting's pretty goddamn awful. But
and yeah, Don, that male you got was from I did 2 pairings like that, and yeah, that's from one of them. Actually, I'm pairing.
So yeah,
probably
that right there is. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Yeah, that right there is somehow a super conda. But again, Super Arctic does weird things to stuff. I blame the Super Arctic.
Trinity's going towards purple people eaters. Purple people eater is a good project. And
I think so.
Good Avery finding the shirt.
I'm just late to stuff, like a lot of projects all of the time, but it's because I make projects.
Late to projects, Anthony asks, are either of you trying for permafrost?
So I was, but I've had a long journey with permafrost. So my first pair that I ever did, which was last year, was a Frost X Sable, but those eggs didn't turn out well, which stunk. So I have a triple het permafrost male that I haven't proven out yet, so I don't actually know technically. So I don't like if it's not proven out, then technically I don't know for a fact if it's permafrost or het permafrost with every snake, unless I genetic tested it. But I don't think you can do that yet. But I have the sable het oxide female, and oxide is 2/3 of what's it called, permafrost. So it's just sable hypo. So I want to get that going too, because I think those look pretty as well. But that's the best I got for permafrost. But I think permafrosts are cool.
Yeah. So you got some stuff in that wheelhouse. You got the ingredients there.
It would take about 4 years to make one, hopefully, maybe though, with what I've got.
Are you gonna breed that triple het male to the sable het oxide female next season?
Yeah, next season.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just project-wise, I was predominantly focused on trying to get those Arctic. So last year, I tried to breed her to the Arctic Laugh Toffee, but she didn't want to pair with him, so she bred to a Super Arctic Toffee. So this year, I got her to actually pair with her. Bless you. I got her to pair with the. You're welcome. I got her to pair with the Arctic Laugh Toffee this year, so finally got that project going. So I'll have that, and then next year I'm going to try to prove him out with the sable het oxide, because that'll be nice, because those are 1 in 8 odds, I think, right? Yeah, 1 in 8 odds of hitting a oxide, I think. And then 3 odds.
If you're bringing that triple het.
Yeah. So looking forward to that, because he's 2 to 3 year old male now, so he should be good. What about yourself with the permafrost stuff?
I got hats. They got other stuff in them too, though. I got het frost lavenders right over here. They all have Arctic in them, and they're also Posset sable, 50%. And then I have some. I
don't think.
What were you gonna say?
Huh? I was gonna say I don't think that's too shabby, Jet.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
they're good.
Lav Posset sable, or actually het sable. So Lav Frost Posset sable.
They're Arctics and Arctic Conda, normal Conda combos. They're het frost lavender, and they're Posset sable.
Like 50% Posset, or like lineage Posset?
50 sable.
So that's awesome. Yeah, those are pretty dang cool, especially if because technically, with what we talked about earlier, those could potentially be a triple het, even though it's quad het, if they prove out, because that frost is connected.
Yeah, you know what? That's the thing. People ask me on the quads, and I don't even really like saying that my het frost stuff is like quad, because I have some quad ones over there, because they're het sable, het albino, het frost, and those are also Posset exanthic, so they could be quintuplet hets. If they prove out an exanthic, but that's the frost, man. I really almost consider it like a single, just because it's not
the way it's acting.
It's the way it's acting. Yeah, I mean, shit. I can produce more frost than I can a caramel. I produced 4 visual hypos. I've produced 30 frost by now. I mean, yeah, right around there. So anyway, the frost is like some guy asked me if I had any quad hets, and I'm like, wow, I got these ones. And it's they're het caramel, het sable, het albino, Posset exanthic. I was like, I think they're all gonna make frost. I think it's a het frost. As if you want to know more, just let me know, or just give me a phone call and I could describe it to you. He didn't really want my description. He probably knows I talk a lot. He's like, just looked and he didn't respond.
Yeah. Got a couple questions, it looks like, after that. Jeff, do you have green phenotypes you're working with?
Little bit. Not really. You know what the funny thing is? Most people wouldn't believe this. And I'll say it without being biased. If you want to think I'm biased, That's fine. I'm not going to try to change your mind. At one point, I had the best looking green hypo watermelon hognose in the community. Now, I did get my original ones from Chad Fuchs, but I selectively line bred them for about 3 generations, and I got some pretty hot ones. It wasn't a lot, but I had like 3 in particular that were really insane. One female that was like, if you could reproduce her consistently, beautiful snake, almost white background, and her saddles were like strong mint green. And there was a period where she was about 8-10 months to a year and a half old. The green was just so sharp, minty, and contrasty. She didn't have much black. She almost looked like just like a white and green hognose, and she was so gorgeous. But then as she got older, she got black flecking, and the green kind of faded a bit. Green projects, I think they're fun and good. I like them better with Lemon Ghost, like the Court Gavrith greens. Those are like my favorites, and that's something that I think you could actually make more consistently. These green hypo the thing is, the watermelon name was reserved for your highest quality green hypos. Now some people just call them all watermelons. So that's funny to watch how things change over time, because that's a big change. Going from calling something one thing to a completely different thing, and not really understanding or knowing the origin. But the watermelon green hypo stuff, the one problem with it is greens are very subtle in those type of phenotypes, these grayish light colored animals with these green saddles. And so you're relying on a light colored animal, and these green hues are on the more subtle side. So it's really hard to get these animals. They have like strong like pigmentation. So you're kind of stuck in this perpetual loop of selectively line breeding lighter colored animals and getting green shades and hues that are only obtainable to some degree, because in order to have green, you have to have blue with yellow. And so you need some iridophore and melanophores reacting with these yellow pigment cells. And the only way to get good greens is through this, through a few avenues of selectively line breeding or incorporating something that changes iridophore structures like sables. Swisses too to a degree, but sables are actually better, it seems like, for greens. Like my Lemon Ghost sables, Brandon, you've seen them and you have one.
She's pretty good.
They have a good amount of green, but there's only so much green you can get out. It's not like a red phase. Like you can keep line breeding a red phase, since hognose naturally produce erythrophores. You can get crazy red hognose. In 100 years from now, you might get it like a solid like stop sign red colored hognose. But with green, you're just never going to obtain that, because you're involving hues.
Okay. I'm gonna take out the greenest snake I have.
All right, Brandon's knocking out a green one. Now, I think everybody should get prepared for it, though. It's not going to look the best, though, on these cameras. It has a really hard time showing up.
It looks pretty dang good, though.
Does it? Okay.
So,
all right.
She's gotten quite incredible. Hello, girl. So, all right.
Yeah, see, the camera's not doing this really good, man.
No? Okay. So I'll post a picture on Instagram later.
You have to post a picture.
She is like this color. So this color green that's on the inside. That's there's a monkey.
Oh, it's
Pokemon card. I actually don't know. No, that's not Mankey. That's I don't know what one that one actually is.
Yeah, there's too many of them.
Yeah. But
they have them all now. Now they have like a bow tie Pokemon. It's like getting out of control. Pretty soon you're gonna have
there's some pretty awful ones. Like I've been a pretty big Pokemon person. I think we've discussed that. But like,
Elise just ripped it right off the top of her head. She's called a Grookey. She knew instantaneously.
Grookey. That's the one. I didn't choose Grookey. That's why I didn't know. But I disrespect Grookey. But yeah, so I don't know if y'all can see it, but this kind of green in the inside here. So it's actually like a really deep, rich colored green. But unfortunately, lemon ghosts on any kind of camera don't show up because they're not meant for that.
Michael Underwood thinks he's feels like he's behind. I think it's like I feel behind on certain projects, Mike, and then there's certain things that I did fall behind on. And, you know, it was actually on my mind even while making projects and just like, you know, choosing different avenues, you know, just different project pathways. But the Hognose community is still very young. The reptile community as a whole is very young. I mean, it's changed a lot from like the 90s. Like, I don't remember the 90s too much. I was around as a kid. I like going to the shows. And, you know, the internet and everything, social media, and the availability of more captive-born, like, Hognose. Because that's the thing. Back in 2000, there weren't really that many captive-born Hognose in 2000. There's a lot of wild caught still. So think about that. That's only 24 years ago. And selective line breeding wasn't even really happening then. And we have the rest of forever, Michael. I don't know how old you are, but we have the rest of forever. For however forever lasts, which might not be that long. You know, the time does go by pretty quick. But time's going to pass anyway, so get your Hognose projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've heard. I remember seeing her in person and just going like, actually, I kind of pestered you for the Lemon Ghost Sable stuff. I feel you didn't really want to sell it at first, to be honest. And I was like, come on, like that one's a pretty one. And then
I didn't want to sell that. Yeah, I shouldn't have.
You shouldn't have. Yeah,
you might be a recall on that. I might need to check that one out. It might be a recall on that model, actually.
That's the second one you tried to recall, and the first one was a super condo that you sold to me as a condo. So I mean, that's telling you right.
I'm gonna have to send you a shipping label. That's
I just posted it.
About it.
I posted it on my story. If there's one thing I can say is that you do want to mix Lemon Ghost and Sable. I mean, seeing them in person, you know, they're awesome.
They're good. Well, I'd say the one thing is it's good to mix them, but not advertising. Not an advertisement, but it would be good to buy one from me. This sounds like I'm advertising because I have so many years of work. It's going to speed you up. Sounds like an advertisement. Sounds like I'm giving you a sales pitch. But I've been working on the project longer than anybody. I took my best LGs, put them into my. I can't say best sables. They were just regular sables. There was nothing special about them other than they were nice looking sables. And anyway, they're just average sables. But that was back. I made my first 50% LG sables when I was 30 years old. I'm now 37. Now I have 75%ers finally. I call them Hulks because they're such a high percent now. These are starting to be. These LGs are almost on the scale level of a pure, I'd say. I'm not going to say that they are pures. They're 75%ers. But if you keep taking these a few more generations, these are starting to look really good.
She's a 62.5. So
yeah, 62.5. Yeah, that's that year that was the one you got. At that point, that's all I had was 62.5s. Like I have 62.5s. They're up and breeding now, and then the 75s were just this past season.
Yeah, so there's not like the crazy thing to me is that like there's nothing like so to get to that point, like the actual math behind it, a lot of people don't actually take into account that and do it because a 50%er, right? Before that, if you have a pure sable that goes to a lemon ghost that's pure 50%er, and you have those 50% that are now het sable, what do? Do you breed it to lemon ghost back first and get posset so that's more pure for lemon ghost, or do you breed it to the sable? Because most people will go for sable. But then that's 25% LG to get 25% LG visual sables. And then they'll try to call that still an LG sable when there's only 25% left. But now you hit that visual sable and it's like, all right, where are people drawing the line? Because I feel like if it's not at least like 50% or higher, you can't really like lead calling it like the polygenic. Like I would say it's like an outcross where it'd be like, oh, this is an LG sable versus like, oh, it's a sable lemon ghost outcross. Like, yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
well, that's why it's good to like just denote the percentage in the comment, and that's the thing too. Like Gabriel, we're talking about in the Discord, and that's the thing. It's like it's a very good guideline to keep track of what's happening, and then somebody can easily know what you did without having to go into full detail. They can read it's a 75%. Now, here's one thing though: it's not like pos hets for recessive traits. It definitely takes a little bit of trusting in the breeder, but there's also some visual, aspect to it. Because if somebody says they have a 75% LG, and the thing just looks like pure mud, it may not be. So just gotta be careful of that. But every now and then, like I have some 75%ers. That are, I'd say, some are like neon piss yellow. They almost look like a pure. Not many are like that. Then I have some 75%ers. They're from my Wolma LG line. And the thing is, my Wolma LG line isn't as high expression lemon ghost. I actually have different lines of lemon ghost that branched off that are like OGs, because they were OGs. And then when I around the age of like 20, 22, I started line breeding them in different directions, and then you get different results. If you selectively line breed something for 4, 5, 6 generations, things can change a lot. But Scaly Piggies is back. Adrian. What else do we have
Adrian, what's up, my man?
I wish I got his
Lisa,
sticks
if you
instead
want to
of
see
going to
the
college.
lemon ghost. Oh, sorry.
What was that about lemon ghost?
Oh, I was gonna say I posted the lemon ghost sable girl on my story.
Oh,
But
good. Everybody, check out Brandon's Instagram story. Melo Hogs.
Because yeah, definitely looks a little bit better than that. But what's it called? Yeah, her greens show up way better in the second video without the flash, actually. So
yeah, at least 90K. You could have gotten a lot of cool Hognose back then. You probably you'd have a lot of good stuff. You'd already be at shows. You'd probably be rivaling me. Instead, you chose to go to college. Sorry, I'm being a dick. That's just being mean. I like college. I mean, you got the network and experience, and like I don't know exactly what happened in college. I'm sure it was still pretty good, but yeah, it's college. That's no joke.
Oh yeah, I doubt she's taking it to heart though. She's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, sometimes I just say stuff. Anthony says you just wish you discovered Hognose earlier. Yeah, you know what? How'd you like? Well, I'll ask Anthony later. Brandon, how did you come across like Hognose? How did you even find like me on MORPH Market, and like what attracted you to wanting a Hognose snake?
Oh, all right. So this whole story is fun. So my entire childhood, my parents wouldn't let me own animals at all and stuff like that. But I'd always been fascinated by reptiles, and I always owned the books. Like, yeah, it's like you remember those old books that like were encyclopedia books, but had all of the pictures of the snakes on them, and it would like you could just flip through them. Yeah, and I would just get whatever ones I could about lizards, snakes, sharks, just any animals I had, and I would just read those all the time because I was like couldn't have pets at all. So I moved out at 20, which I'm 27 now, almost 26, but moved out at 20, and then just was kind of vibing, had my own apartment, and then eventually I get a construction job with a guy who has a 10-foot Colombian red tail, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you get a snake?" And I was like, "What?" Because I would always talk to him about how cool I thought that he owned snakes was, and it was just like it's something that I didn't fathom because I never owned pets, wasn't allowed to own pets from my parents. Just that's not what they wanted in the house. So I eventually just went on YouTube and started looking up just like different species and stuff like that. And I know randomly, I forget how old the video was, but there's one with you getting interviewed by Dave Kaufman, and another one, which was the first one that showed me, which was one from Clint's Reptiles, talking about hognoses. And like I'd never seen a hognose before. Like I love McGregor's pit vipers. I love like Enceladus, like all of those kinds of species, but I'd never seen one that looked like a hognose before. Like genuinely, I was like, what is that? And like at first I was like, man, that's like really funky. They're brown patterning, everything like that. It kind of looks like they're like little rattlesnakes and stuff like that. And then like the whole putting up and the cobras, and I started doing more and more research into it. And I was like just spending months just like looking up these things. And I was like, all right, so there's these things called morphs, and I started learning and just researching. And then eventually I just went on MORPH Market because I was like, where would I end up buying like a hognose? Because eventually the reality came where I was like, you know what? I live on my own. I can just buy animal now. So I eventually looked on, thanks to the encouragement of my old boss who owned a 10-foot Colombian red tail, who now owns a hognose from me that I gifted to him as pretty much like it's actually that's full circle. I'll go to that in a second. But what's it called? I just was looking on MORPH Market, and I was like looking at genes, and then eventually, you look up hognoses and you come across websites that have morphs and stuff. I think Erin at Ectotherm, who I got the Court Gavith Lemon Ghost girl that was bred to the 75% LG het sable from you. She has the website. I haven't looked in a little bit, but I'm sure it's still up with all the morphs and different stuff. So I'd look through there and go like, oh man, like what are these morphs? And I saw a snowburst and a storm cloud and stuff. Then when I saw storm cloud, and I was like, I saw the blue snake, I was like, oh my God, what is that? And so I noticed your ad like randomly. I think genuinely it might have been one like just refreshed or came up on the page, but it stood out between like the way like the snake looked and just it having the multiple genes. Cause like I said, it was a Conda triplet snowburst. I just kind of was like, you know what? I'll just finally actually just like reach out. Like I'll take this next step into buying an animal. And then I will be honest, so you made like the whole aspect of that so much easier than like I thought it was going to be, because I had no idea what the hell I was doing, and you kind of gave me the basics to figure it all out, and that's kind of how I got into it all. And now, I mean, like I was just mentioning, the owner, not the owner, the boss of that business that who encouraged me to get in the Hognoses, literally owns a Hognose that I gifted to him, and he says it's like his favorite. I can read it verbatim for you. It's like it makes me feel like weird in like such a positive way, because he wrote like, dude, I love you. This snake is my favorite pet I ever had, and it's the chillest. I can't thank you enough. His pattern is awesome, and he's just so curious. He's like, I needed this thing, dude. And it's like to to be told that, and to like get messages from like customers who have bought snakes that are like they're doing so well, and to get updated, I'm getting like emotional. It's weird, but it's like it's such a nice feeling, because it's like I worked really hard to like get to that point, and then just like to actually have people like excitedly tell me like that the animal they got from me is doing well. It's like it's like the world, man. It's so cool. So thank you to everyone too. Like
cool.
there's people in here that have done that, and I'm sure for you every time it's just like it's cool that people actually trust you to create more healthy animals, just do all this stuff. So it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, because we're getting updates on animals. Because some people will be like, "Oh, I'm not sure if you even want to see an update." I'm like, "Yeah, I always want to see updates. You know, I don't want to see it like every single week. You know, like all the time. But yeah, every now and then, yeah, every couple months or whatever. Yeah, I love to see it because like sometimes like I've had people too. The real nice ones are if like I forgot and they popped up out of the blue, and it's like 3 years later or 2 years later, and like, hey, this is a Hognose I got from you like 3 years ago, and check it out. It's doing really good. There was one like this one wasn't like it wasn't a negative or a positive. I'd say it's probably more on the positive, but some girl bought a Hognose for me as like a double het snow, and this was like a year and a half ago, and she was going to college, so she was like her dad was like selling it. And how much they were like, we paid like $300 for or something like that, or what's she worth now? And this was like a year and a half ago, and it was like a 4-year-old never bred double het snow female. She just kept as a pet. I was like, oh, you could probably get $900 easily for that thing. And
they're probably like, what the heck?
Yeah, but yeah, it's unfortunate that they were selling it because like she's gonna it's like. You're going to be coming back from college or whatever, but I think she couldn't take the snake with her, and her dad didn't want to take care of it. So,
which is weird because I mean, if it's an adult 4-year-old female, technically you'd probably only have to give it water every 3 or 4 days to actually maintain it while giving it food like every 10 to 14 days. So it's actually pretty easy to take care of an animal.
Yeah, he probably just didn't want to because he wasn't a snake guy. And Trinity, she's got you can send me a collage update. That would be the best. A collage update all at once.
Swiss males are cool.
Yeah, Gabriel was talking about it. He said Swiss male's pretty green. His male doesn't have a lot of greens. Gabriel is hyper analyzing and all the pigments going on in there though because he's a leopard gecko person. If you ever talk to a leopard gecko person, man, they'll be like, "Yeah, I hatched out this leopard gecko. It's like he's got these orange flares on his spots on his head. The spots are almost gray with orange.
Should he drop more?
The background is like whitish." And then the way they described it, you get this really crazy idea in your head, but then you look, it's like, oh, yeah, I see what you're talking about.
I don't know yet. This is the first year we have Leos coming, so that's going to be exciting.
Yeah. How many eggs do you have right now?
I think 4. She dropped more today, 15 days later after her first egg, so she dropped 2 more today.
You'll probably get more.
Up to 4. Oh, I told Avery, I was like, be prepared. There's going to be more. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, they can just keep laying. Like, isn't it like up to like 7-ish times?
I've gotten up to 24 eggs from a female leopard gecko this season. That's rare. Usually the first year females, I'm getting like 8, 10, 12 eggs. I used to get more, but I don't like feed them like I used to with all that stuff. I mean, they get crickets regularly and they get supplements, but I used to get like average like probably around like 12 eggs per female first season. Now I feel like I average like 8, 10, or 12.
I don't think she's ready because she thought it was only going to be 2, because that's how many they had. I was like, no, they keep laying. It's not double clutching. It's like just keep clutching. So
yeah,
max is 10 clutches, usually 5 to 6. All right, I mean, it's good for you guys to tell me this stuff, so it's good. It's good
yeah.
to look out for this.
I don't know what the record is. I swear there was somebody that had this. They said that he got like 30 eggs from a female that just consecutively just kept laying like every 2-3 weeks. Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, she's nervous. See, I told you.
Yeah, no, it's cool, but you know, it's even getting clutch every 2 weeks though. Yeah, I guess that is possible. I mean, like I've gotten like 22 and 24 eggs in a season from a female. It's rare, but yeah, it's usually like 5 or 6 is more common. I get a lot of 4, 5s, and 6s.
Well, we'll have to sell the ones that we aren't planning on keeping. I don't even know what the pairing is. You guys know what the pairing is more than I.
What's she nervous about? Raising leopard gecko babies? It's like easier than the fire skinks. It's like a fire skink, but easier.
Well, we need the space for the fire skink babies.
True.
We have too many Leos. That means we got to buy more space for the Leos. So they'll end up probably coming in here. I'll probably make space, even though I'll probably need more space if I'm getting 16 or 17 egg clutches. So what's it called though? But yes, see, she needs skink space.
Skink space. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Jeff asked me about my betas. I just typed to him. He's like, I don't know if my betas are gravid this year. I have my one adults together. We'll see. I'm not sure.
Are you trying it? Banana Man gonna be ready?
Well, I have ones that I paired together this year, but kind of on the young side. I've been feeding them. The female I thought was gravid for a bit, but now I think she's just like she just always has food in her belly, so it's hard to tell. She's pretty big. Max first seen Hognose because of Brian. Then years later, when looking for a new pet snake, I refound Hogs, and looking into them, I saw the Super Arctic and Moonstone, and I knew I had to get one. Yeah, that's a good point, Max. Is not only the physical aspect and characteristics of Hognose snake, which is appealing, the morphs are really appealing too. Moonstones and Super Arctics, these purple and black and white snakes.
Oh yeah, the person who I ended up. Oh yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say Shovel Nose Hogs, Jermaine. That's the person I ended up watching a bunch of videos on early on for videos at least. He was always good. So shout out to Jermaine. Made some cool lemon ghost stuff too with the Granite Jungle with that stripe. What do you think that is, Jeff?
Very good. Deviation of Woma LG. Deviating meaning it's going in a different direction, so you can selectively line breed it. It's a very good one.
Yeah, it looks pretty funky. So.
Is that reproducible? Yes.
That is what you want to hear.
Yeah. It's going to be wonky, though. I mean, it's going to be erratic, but it's reproducible. Gabriel asked about skull face, but if he was in here earlier, you would have seen me share the friggin' skull face.
Jeez, I opened that door and it just got so drafty.
Here's a frosted skull face because I'm unable to make a caramel skull face with my caramel to het frost stuff.
Yeah. Makes sense, right? Those bellies are freaking weird.
Yeah, the bellies on them are very bizarre.
Those are funky.
The camera is making it look weird. It's making it because his head structure is actually good. That one ankle's making him look funky.
Yeah, it's a male. Leo's. The patterning is just so funky, though.
It is. Yeah, the frost anaconda combined with the skull face kind of reducing the pattern even more.
It cleans it up even more. And then, like, with the halos, like you said before, that's just so weird. That's so cool, though, like, in a cool way.
Yeah,
so funky.
These guys are babies, so it's kind of hard to show on camera because I'm showing you, like, like a 6-gram snake.
It's okay. It's picking up pretty well.
Oh, what else do I have? I have a skull face over here.
How's Brendan Jr. doing this year? Is he doing well?
What was that a question for me?
Yeah, I said, how was Brandel Jr. doing?
Brandel Jr. is doing fantastic. I actually have not paired him yet this year, but I'll pair him to a few females soon. I'm having a late season, much like you.
Better late than never. But like I said, I think I mentioned it to you before. I did a later season because my females were bred this time last year, so I didn't want to go earlier in the season. I want to give them that full year for their reproductive cycles to catch up, and just what's best for them in a sense. Or at least from what I've talked to you, is giving them like a year is pretty good for their reproductive systems.
Sure, yeah. Up. You want to give them a break. Now, the one thing is, our breaks in captivity though are pretty good, because in the wild, they're brumating for a much longer period of time. While brumation is giving their body a rest and natural sleep, and they, go into, brumation, and they're effectively, their metabolism's, lowered drastically. But recovery after laying in the wild, they only have a few months to eat food and stock up before, brumation. And brumation can be a little, tedious on their body as well. It can be a little stressful. So in captivity, us doing shorter brumation periods, they get a pretty good lapse in recovery before cooling them. But yeah, would I want to breed a female and then breed her 9 months, apart into, for the next season, like, only having 9 months between next breeding? No, I'd want to get it closer to 12 months. Just give her body the best recovery time, or most recovery time possible.
And I got those awesome eggs, so it makes me feel better.
Yeah. All right, Avery's going to bed. Going to harass you about that one later. All right, Gabriel. Jeff, do you have a clutch of striped womas? I have womas. I've had some. I don't have any really striped ones like that. I do have some from Jermaine that are my quarantine that I will be breeding into my woma lineage, because his did get outcrossed into the granite jungle stuff. So I do have some of his genetics to incorporate into my pure womas. The pure womas are very good because even though they might not be the craziest with stripes and stuff, my pure womas are very solid. If you outcross them, I got some over here. They're actually 4 inches from me. Let me grab one. These are outcrosses, and this is how the power of pure woma. This is from.
I'll go grab more lemonade.
Fucking fly got in here.
Yeah, I had one fly through the window. It disappointed me thoroughly.
I know. It sucks, man, because every now and then, because we have a lot of flies outside, and especially because of the cricket tubs I dump out there, and then every now and then the door opens and a fly or two friggin' rushes in. Now, this is from a pure woma to a color blast. Kinda. So anyway, look how strong this woma is. You could pass this off as a pure woma. And it's 50%.
Oh my god. Wait. Those back. All right. That is crazy.
That's a 50%er. But I used a pure woma. When these pure womas, some people probably don't understand polygenics. It is mostly about looks, but there is a small percent. Let's say you have a pure woma. I've had some people say, well, so-and-so has this woma lemon ghost, and I think it's better looking, but it's an outcross high percent one. My pure woma is going to outperform it, no, without a doubt, with outcrosses. Not saying the other one isn't better looking. I'm yeah, but technically
genetic structure.
Yeah, it might be more green and yellow. It might be a little more wonky and cool looking, but my pure woma is holy shit. And I made some here's kind of versions that came out. This one's in deep shed though, and she's a golden rusty.
Yeah, but again though, this is a 50% outcross of lemon ghost and color blast stuff, and they look that good.
Exactly. That one I just showed was the worst example. This one's pretty good. Here's one of the. This is a good one to show because it's one of the worst ones from the clutch. So it's not because I just showed you one of the best. This is one of the worst. See, she's pretty typical looking. She's got a nice golden background, real nice red sails. She does have some woma pattern, but I mean that's actually pretty good for a first generation outcross.
Her lower end is pretty good.
Your lower end's actually pretty fantastic. Her upper body is pretty standard looking. There's a few bands there. But yeah, you get down here though.
Literally 50-50. There you go. Pattern and everything.
Yeah, she is.
Still pretty awesome though.
Yeah, then we got here's a Conda that is being really affected by that Woma.
Okay.
And that's a 50-50.
Yeah, would never guess that. That's incredible. That could be its own thing, man. Would never but that goes to show how strong, using actual 100% pure genetic animals that you've been working on does versus say someone has just like a purple line, lemon ghost that's been severely outcrossed before.
You're not going
to get that to happen. You're not. That's
look
not
at that
going to happen.
consistency with the Conda, though. Look how that Conda reacts with it.
Yeah, it's unreal.
They look very similar.
Stripe,
what was that?
Everything. No, I said with the stripe and everything, and the solid pattern all the way down that remains pretty uniform. That's incredible.
Here's the smallest one in clutch. This one, she's kind of like a finicky feeder, but see, yeah, same deal. You get those blurry sides and that striped dorsal. She's nice and golden colored.
Like the little cleft notes and stuff on the side, the little marks and the colons and whatnot. That's crazy. That's incredible. And that's from a 50-50 outcross.
Yeah, that's from that's from pure Woma Lemon Ghost to a Color Blast Conda.
So to explain that to people in kind of like the similar terms that you do with the Lemon Ghost Sable is like, how long ago did you start the Lemon Ghost Sable project?
Lemon Ghost Sable project 7 years.
So this is essentially like with you doing this cross is like the start of like that 7-year build up for this cross that you're doing in a sense. It's going to be a little less time. Yeah, probably because it's just poly instead of recessive, but it's going to take you a while to get to what you're thinking it's going to be, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The funny thing is I am very patient with this stuff, and I don't really mind putting the time into it at all. But when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be like forever until you see some these results are already crazy, but that's actually an awesome indicator.
That's going to get.
In the next 5 years, these things are going to get stupid. Here's another one. I got a lot of Condas in the clutch, which is great, but I kind of like the non-Condas almost a little better. Not really. I mean, they're just
that different. White wall to soft tone to like even deeper tone now on the sides is pretty crazy.
Yeah, they got that blurred side from the Woma, and a lot of them almost all of them are striped like that. Almost every single one has that stripe. Some aren't as good as others, but they're pretty striped. And then it's like the colors too are better looking in person. Like I will say this, I was shocked by the quality of these offspring, but that's also a good example of breeding a poly to a poly. A poly to poly, you're generally always gonna get better results than breeding a poly to something that has like just standard wild type phenotype, because it's just like going to draw that out of there. So reds and yellows are kind of they're similar because erythrophores and xanthophores are controlled by the same pigment producing cells. Actually, Avery just today posted about the definition difference between axanthism and aneurysm. Going one level back into that though, the same pigment cells do produce both yellow and red pigment cells. But as you're selectively line breeding something that produces more yellow pigment cells, and you're selectively line breeding something that produces more red pigment cells, in this case, and then you're breeding them together, now you're getting this mishmash, and they actually go pretty well because they're already same chromatophores. They're already firing extra pigments. They're just deviating
intensifying.
One to the other. So they actually react really well.
Especially considering that is pretty much like the foundation of that.
Here's another one. See, this is like one of the other this probably is the lower. This one's probably lower quality than the other one. Looks like it's about to shit. Its ass is all filled up. But you can see it's still got Woma bands. Yeah, they came out. Every single one came out with normal Woma bands. And
they look great.
Yeah, and a few of them are perfectly Woma banded. They're they're on par with a pure Woma.
Here's the worst one. It's awesome, but it's the worst. Oh, that's so. Yeah, but that actually, like we go back to, that's if you take, 50% orange juice and mix it with 50% Coke instead of people who have these animals that are already all the way down to 10%. And then they're breeding them together and they don't look like that. And they're like, what went wrong? Why don't mine look like Jet? It's because they're not as pure as the ones that you have. People don't really take that as seriously as they should.
when you start out with peers with crossing, the peers are the best for a route crossing. When you're not, if you have your like 10 or 20% orange juices with the Coca-Cola you're describing, you're all messed up. But the thing is, those are better than nothing. They're a lot better than nothing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you just need to get something good to breed those into. So I've had
But
people that
some
show
of them
me
you can't even tell.
Right. I've had people show me these lemon ghosts, and you've seen them before, Brandon. People are like, look at this lemon ghost out cross, and it's like, you're like, what does this thing have? 12, 20% LG in it? And it's like, well, it's not like a lost cause, but when you make your, let's say, Sable LG that's only 25%, that's good, but now you're going to want to buy like a high quality LG Sable high percent and then breed that into it. And then you can help try to save it. You could save it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the male with the female from you are going to make like 68.5s, I think, because he's a 75.
I think it's 68.25, or maybe it's 67. Yeah. I'll do the math real quick. I'm not that good at math. I'm good at simple math, and I love it. But a lot of times I just refer to my calculator.
Don't think you can be too.
It's 68.75.
75. Okay.
Yeah, so you're right. You said 68. You're right. You're just right. Oh, 68.75. We can round it up to 69s. To 69.
Yeah.
All right.
Time to advertise in that way. Boom. 69 LGs.
Sables. And then Gabriel asked, "Are you going to pair these?" Yeah, I'm going to pair those together, Gabriel. Those are fine to breed to each other. Those will be I will make F2s, and then I'll cross them into other F1s that I'm making this season from the similar pairing. Similar but different.
Same, but different. Great reference.
Trinity asked about her pass. You asked about that. It's like he's a 50. Max says, "Damn, that looks cool." Oh, I think he's talking about the Color Blast or Color Blast LG crosses. How many boxes of gloves do you go through a day? I don't know a lot. How many gloves do you go through, Brandon?
A day? Oh, I probably
let's say a year. Let's go a year.
A year? Oh, probably like 4 or 5 boxes.
A year?
And by boxes, I mean cases.
Cases. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, 4 or 5. I was gonna say 4 or 5 boxes. You gotta go through more than that.
So each one has 50 boxes. So 50 boxes of gloves for me. 40 to 50.
I don't know how many we're going through. As you keep track. Actually, I have a bunch of empty boxes.
But with my current setup, I don't. So, like, for example, all of Jeff's snakes are above other snakes just because I know that, like, I get a majority from Jeff. So I work with different gloves, even from, like, certain individuals to others because I'm crazy. And then if, say, like, another one is a different, like, I have some from Nate, I'll go to that one and I'll use different gloves. And I just go from different gloves to, like, constantly. So if I have an individual that's from a different time period that I got from someone, I'll use different gloves because I'm crazy and I wash my hands constantly because I love my animals and I just like making sure that they're okay. But also at the same time, I don't like getting poop on my hands when I clean things. And I don't know if you ever tried to wash out like a tub. It's gross doing it barehanded.
Yeah, then your hands are getting wet and everything. So, yeah. If you want to handle your snakes every now and then, like, you can. But yeah, we are working on stuff. It's like, why wouldn't you want to wear gloves? I mean, I'm in the habit of it so much. Like, I prefer it, especially like you said, Brandon.
By the cuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're interacting with anything that has like any stool or anything like that, or you're doing waters, you want to keep stuff sterile. Then it's easiest to, wash your hands a bazillion times. I mean, my hands already get dried out. How are your hands, Brandon? You use any moisturizers on your hands? Let's talk about moisturizers, people.
Yes. Well, I'm lucky enough where the sink is literally out that door and to the right, so I can literally like walk out and then just literally pivot around the wall, and I can be inside the room. But I have O'Keeffe's Working Man's Hand soap, which is actually really good for moisturizing your hands if it's like messed up. So you could use that stuff. That's the stuff I use to moisturize my hands. But other than that, I use the soap I told you that Leslie now uses probably still in the bathroom.
Yeah, we got jugs of that.
Yeah, that stuff's awesome. I love it. It helps clean your hands really well. But I don't know. My hands are pretty okay now. I'll send you the O'Keeffe stuff. It works pretty well.
Summer months are kinder because of the humidity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not snowing and 0 degrees where you are right now.
No. Yeah, well, actually, it doesn't seem like we get real bad winters anymore. The winters aren't as bad as when I was a kid.
Yeah, I just got through a heat wave. It was like 96 up here, so we made it. It was
Yeah, it's
pretty bad.
92 here today. That's hot for northeast Ohio. Very hot.
Yeah,
92 is
96 is
fucking
bad
crazy for us.
for Rhode Island too. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, because only 8 degrees for like 100. You were what, 4 degrees? So you said 96?
yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty damn terrible. So
yeah, that's great. I was at Lake Mead last year, and it was 103 degrees.
Why? For what reason?
Kayaking?
No. I didn't mean why were you there? For what reason? I meant why does it have to be so hot?
Why does it have to be so hot?
Yeah.
Well, because it's by Vegas.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, Vegas is terrible. No, thank you.
Yeah, it was in September too, so it was like mid-September, so it's actually cooling off a bit. It gets up to like 115 there sometimes, and 120.
Yeah, that's unreasonable. No, thank you. I would not live in the desert for anything.
Yeah, so Anthony said it was 102 today in Vegas. He's in Vegas. The nights in Vegas, I love visiting Vegas. Vegas is great for visiting.
102 is crazy. Your air conditioners must like friggin' ask you for like they must have a union. They must like I can't imagine. Like wow, 102. What do you guys do? Do you guys just stay inside all day?
They stay inside. In Vegas, in Vegas, I know construction. Sometimes the guys start at like 4 a.m. and by noon they're done. You know, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it'd just be too hot.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's probably like 80 when they go out in the morning.
Sometimes. When I was there, like the one time, it's like I've been there in September several times, and it would always be like very hot during the day. The one time I was there at the end of September, and they were actually having a heat wave. It was supposed to be cooler. My sister got married out there, and it was the end of September. I remember it was like September 28th she got married. And so I was there for like 4 days or 5 days. I think it was 4 days. And the highs were actually a little above what they're typically supposed to be. It was like 90, 92 every day. But then in the morning, man, like right around like 5, 6 a.m., I'd go outside, and it was cold. It was like 62, 63 degrees. And then you'd be going in the buildings, the air conditioning would still be like running real hard because of all the heat built up from the previous day. And then, then by 7, 8 a.m. it was already getting warm out. And then by like 9, 10 a.m. it was already like 85. And by noon it was like 90.
Wow. Yeah. No, people like commenting with in the chat. That's crazy. No, thank you. 102, 104.
That's a lot.
126 on the strip last year. Yeah. You guys, what at that point, can you just cook eggs on the concrete outside? Like,
probably.
That's incredible.
The nights are beautiful. I don't know though. And the days where it's like 100, I imagine sometimes the nights. Well, you know what? Because one time I was outside there, and it was like 90 at night, and it's a weird feeling because you go out there, it's pitch black, and it's like fucking still like the heat's still just balling real hard.
Yeah, just boiling, and you're like, the sun's not even out. What's going on?
Yeah, it's completely. It's been dark for hours, and it's still friggin' killing you.
It's
not as bad though. Yeah, it's not as bad though, because you don't have the sun. Last time I was in Vegas, which was actually in September, it was really nice in the mornings and evenings. Yeah, during the day though, it was definitely brutal. It was like 96, 97 during the day. When we were walking around from like 6 a.m. where we get up sometimes at like 4 a.m., it was great. And then it was right around 11 a.m. it started getting uncomfortable. You notice every day, it's like, it's like 11, 11:30, and you start getting uncomfortable.
It just feels like you're walking through a pool because of just how terrible and hot and humid it might get.
Yeah, it definitely hits you. Definitely your body starts to not appreciate it.
Elise had to drive in California weather, 92 degrees with no AC.
Who has no AC?
Elise.
She has no AC in her car?
And it's probably start-stop, too. With
my car's AC is broken. Yes, I see it right here.
No, thank you. That's unbearable. Like this week, like I said, it got up to like 95. I turned all like the heat off on all of the racks and stuff like that. Just so I was like, yeah, no, they don't need it this little thing got to like 86 in here.
Yeah. My air conditioner has been running a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. We tried. I gotta get a what's it called, a new one for in here that works better. Kind of maintain it because I do what you do with the hatchlings, where I just kind of leave them on the shelf for the for eggs, so it can't get too hot. Because I was talking to you and it was getting at one point it got to like 86, so I just told Avery, I was like, we're putting them in your incubator. I was like, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
It was that first day.
Yeah, 86 is like okay for a little bit. Like, you know, I've had hognose eggs like spike up to like 87 before. This for a little bit is fine, especially closer to hatching. I think the killing point for
This was
hognose
first day after lay.
Yeah.
That's why I was worried.
What is the day after they laid?
Yeah, the day after they laid, it got that hot. So I was like, yeah, I don't want that. I was like, it was like first day. I didn't want to just like start cooking the eggs immediately. I was like, I'll just throw in the incubator at 82, just in case. You know.
Do you bury yours in coco coir too?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
That helps with the heat because that keeps the heat from like building up as fast. And then they actually, a lot of times they stay like a half a degree cooler a lot of times, you know, or a degree cooler almost.
Yeah. I got to do a little better job because actually, both clutches that I have, there's clusters that just got stuck. I think it's because they're just transferring nutrients to each other. No, I'm kidding. But
I looked into that, Brandon.
Did you?
Yeah. Well,
what came about that?
Well, Julie,
I was just saying.
Julie's getting only good weather. She just pointed out. Julie is in Seattle. She's getting only good weather. It's my
definitely.
What were you saying about nutrients, Brandon, and the eggs?
Oh yeah, the nutrients passing from egg to egg. That when we read about that was kind of interesting. I know we talked about them being able to communicate to each other, probably, but
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, it's like, what do they mean by communicate? You know what I mean? Because that's one thing with the one problem with the reptile hobby is semantics. You ever like people arguing online about aggressive? That used to be a big one. That used to be talked about more than poisonous versus venomous, I feel. Like, I'm not even joking. Like,
aggressive.
10, 15 years ago, when people would say my snake's aggressive, people would flip the shit out and be like, your snake's not aggressive, it's defensive. And it was like the dumbest argument because really all you're arguing is over a trivial use of a word and you're actually making an assumption about it. Because actually a snake that's striking at me repeatedly, that's aggressive. Now, I'm not saying that the motive is aggression, but the actual action is aggression. It's coming at me forcibly. Yes. It's coming at me in an aggressive manner. Now, I'm not saying...
I can whip out that Het Lucy that's a poop emoji. I'll show you aggressive. People think that's defensive. It's both, but he's coming at you.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's not motivated by aggression. It's not like the snake is like, you know, pissed at, like I cut him off in traffic and he's getting aggressively natured. No, his aggression is nature. No, it's defensive, but yeah, the actual action is, you know, could be described as aggressive.
Aggression.
Yeah, but the whole eggs communicating between each other, what it's supposed to be is they can share nutrients from their shell because calcium can be taken from the shell through their vascular system, which I didn't know. I thought their vascular system that is webbed to the surface of the egg was for the purpose of bringing in oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide that they produce through, you know, growing as an embryo and through processing nutrients. But actually, they'll actually take some calcium from the shell. So they say some eggs are a little weaker. If they're connected, they can actually draw calcium from the shell of the other one. Now, by them communicating with one another, the snakes are good at, you know, sensing vibrations and stuff. So as these embryos become developed and they can, maybe they can feel each other's heartbeats. I don't know what the fuck that's even going to do anyway. I don't know what they can't, what are they communicating? What's a live snake communicating to another live snake? The way they're communicating in real time, like,
you're developing good in there too.
What was that?
Yeah. They're like, yo, you developing good in there too? Yeah, I am. Yeah, can you throw me calcium?
Yeah. Like, what do you get moral support? So what you have to do is get a bunch of eggs and like just stack them on top of each other, incubate them, and then not do it with other clutches and do a bunch of them and then see if there's some type of result. I did take some, like, to do this. I got some really small eggs this year, man. some of the smallest damn eggs I've ever seen. These were the size of like really large blueberries. I'm like, oh shit, they're good.
Turtle?
Yes.
Wow.
They're probably a little bigger, like
the jumbo ones, right?
You know, like a jumbo blue, like a really like the biggest blueberry you've ever found. Like, you know, like, well, maybe actually a little smaller than that. Some blueberries are like that big, and they were smaller than that, man. These things were like tiny, like, you know, like you get like a bullshit grape. These are like bullshit grape size. But they expand. And anyway, you know, I'm like, well, if any babies need to communicate or take calcium from each other's shells, it's these bastards, because these things are so small. So I grouped them all together.
Yeah,
they're expanding, but naturally they do that anyway, and they're looking better because like they're like 3 weeks in almost now, and then they're finally like almost normal grape size. They're like the size of like a decent leopard gecko egg now. So these are going to be like probably 3 gram babies, 4 gram babies, probably 3 grams.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. I was like, how big? Because yeah, that we had Little Bit last year who was smaller than a quarter. That was crazy. And it was like, you look at that and you're like, how does this little thing exist? Because even this year, I was like, your brain expects the eggs to be bigger, and then they start coming out, and you're just like, oh, all right, like they're not like, I mean, some of them can be huge, but they're generally like probably grape size, a little bit bigger than grapes, like good sized grapes, not like get skimped grapes, like probably, yeah, I'd say good decent size. But I've seen ones where it's like some of the eggs can be like 3 times the size of regular hognose eggs. And it's like, in that regard, it's like that's, in my opinion, kind of worse for the female. I'd rather them not pump out like 6 eggs that all have 12 gram babies in them versus like a bunch of smaller ones that you have to work with like 5 gram babies in them.
Well, I haven't had too many problems with females passing well, every now and then, I think it really depends on the female. But if the female's got that nice mature cloaca and tail, but I know what you mean. I had a female almost 2 years ago. She laid some of the biggest fucking eggs I'd ever seen in my whole life, man. The smallest baby in the clutch was 11 grams, and the biggest baby in the clutch was 12.5.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, these eggs were gigantic, man. The eggs, and she laid 9. She did well with them. And the funny thing is, it was a little over 2 years ago because the daughters actually just bred, and they just laid. And the funny thing is, both her daughters, their eggs are pretty big, man. They're above average for sure.
So it's in the genes. It's just
a little bit, I think. I think it's like, you know,
it would make sense, you know, look, if the mother passes down her reproductive system's abilities. It seems like it would make a little bit of sense.
It does. It definitely does. I think there's definitely some level of that going on, but then also, I mean, you've seen it where, like, you know, hoggos will lay big eggs and small eggs. And I've had hoggos lay big eggs, and then a year later they lay small eggs, and they lay a bunch of eggs. It's weird. Hoggos are probably, because I've had people ask me that are breeding hoggos. They're like,
say, hey, male paired. Because I paired a different male with the AA. Yeah.
In some of these cases, no. Most cases, no. I don't know if that has much to do with it, though, because, like, I've had females, too, lay big eggs and small eggs in the same clutch. And I know there's consistency. So I know what you mean. Yeah, maybe the genetics, the DNA of the other male, or, you know, different male. Yeah, that's, because the one thing
Another thing I thought of was feeding style, too. Like how often they get fed in the development.
That'll affect it too, because that clutch I was talking about, the ones with the really tiny eggs, that female does its second clutch, and that female didn't really want to eat much after her first clutch. And so she ended up producing these fucking peanut gallery eggs. All right, Trinity's asking about resources. There's one for geckos, Trinity, if you look it up. It shows the embryonic stage growth for geckos. It's pretty fast.
I'm trying to find, I don't know, reasonably what size would a regular hognose egg would be. I don't know. Probably, like, I would say half your thumb.
Yeah.
A little bit
Depends
bigger.
on how big your thumb is.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. Like a little bit bigger probably than half your thumb. 3/5 of your thumb.
Unless you got Eric or Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
What about like those large green grapes? Like a large green grape, like a large one, that's pretty close. Maybe a little on the small side for average hognose eggs. That's the thing. Hognose lay such crazy, like, because I've heard from ball python breeders where they say they're ball pythons. I mean, ball pythons kind of lay pretty typical like eggs all the time, and and so do other like milk snakes. My Honduran milks, like their eggs are all about the same size. But like hognose snakes, I mean, you can get eggs like so different. Like you can have eggs that are so wildly different in different shape. I even get some like really odd. Like I got one I told you about earlier, Brandon. It looks like one of those squeeze things where the eyes pop out. Yeah, it got narrower into center. I thought this egg was gonna go bad. It's good.
Doesn't make sense. It's like a little dumbbell egg.
It looks like, it looks a little better now that it's developed and it puffed up, but I should get a picture of it and send it. It's fucking stupid looking. It's the dumbest egg, man. Actually, it's not the dumbest egg. It's just dumb looking, but I have seen dumber.
Yeah, they're like the boob eggs that are just like at the end. Yeah, those don't make sense. And there's no way this survives, and then they do, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, no, I've seen boob eggs with ball pythons, boob eggs with hognose. Some of them, are fine. I had one clutch laid. They looked just like slugs. They never calcified. They were yellowish looking, but they had embryos in them, and they were very yellow. And I incubated. Most of them went bad, and then 3 tightened up, went full term, and hatched out healthy babies.
Which is awesome. Like nature did its thing. I figured it out. Which is one of the things that always amuses me, is that like one of the first things in the first season that I got super stressed about was like imposing myself onto making sure and like checking that everything was like good and being in the correct parameters all of the time. And then you come to figure out it's not as serious and not as hardcore as being to a specific number, as long as you're actually just keeping specific ranges that like actually is kind of what matters for taking care of things. Like for brumation, it's like I had them at 58 last year, and then I did 52 this year, 52 to 54. I think 54. I did 54 this year for their temperature range for 60 days, and I mean that seemed to have done a little bit better than what 58 did last year. So
you like the cooler temp better?
Yeah, I see. I liked it because I mean I'm not saying a contributor, but in this experience from anecdotally, they did a lot better coming out. I just took the the Snow 66 sable female out from here, which still has the world's longest tail. I want to go into a Facebook group, be like male or female, and she's 160 grams currently, so gonna get her going. But it's like she was so much slower than last year's females, like with the way she was moving and stuff. So in my mind, that was like, all right, she kind of got into that proper brumation cycle where she slowed down and kind of like was chilling, because she spent a lot of time even looking around like the heck's going on, So it's like I feel like the colder temperature did benefit a little more in that 54 for me at least.
Yeah, that makes sense because there's actually Nuclear Hogs was in a Discord and he mentioned that, and like I've brumated at lower temps. And typically I'm doing more around like 55 to 57 and 58. But it actually makes sense because the colder you get them, the slower their metabolic rate's going to be. So if you get them down, let's say 52, they're going to be expending even less energy or even needing even less water. So if you have them in that moist coco coir, it's actually just going to prevent them from losing even a little more, even that it's 5.
Yeah, they gained weight.
Yeah, so or they gain weight from absorbing water through their scales. So, when people I've had that from a few people ask me, like, do you think there's benefit to doing, colder or warmer? There's some benefits to warmer. Sure, they're a little more active and you can keep an eye on them a little more. But you gotta have to offer them water, because they're gonna be active. And then at low temp, they're gonna conserve a lot better, and you're gonna give them their body that instinctive, definitely for sure, brumation cycle. So I think both, have their benefits, but I'm actually thinking this next season, I'm going to actually probably brumate a little cooler. Instead of doing like 56, 57, 55, I'm probably going to do like 53, 54. I think the lowest I can get my room down to is like 52 though, because it has an adapter on it. It can only go so cold. I think 52 is my lowest. So I'll probably just do the 53, 54.
Yeah, the one on the bottom that's been my main one is on 54. The top one's on 53 because I was just adjusting them for the heat wave and stuff like that. But the female, I noticed like the moisture in the COCO core has been still super good, and every single one of the females has come out like slower. And I only checked on them. Like for me, like you said, you got to be maintaining them. I didn't really check on the females that often, or the brumators. I usually only check on them once about halfway through because I do a 60-day period. And it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, that's good. I like your process there. Thanks for sharing that. Because like that's something that I didn't think of asking, but that's really good they brought that up because I think that's a good topic. Trinity said hers got down to 39. That's a bit cold. I've gotten mine down to like mid-30s before. It doesn't affect them. I never brumated one in the 30s for a long period of time. It's only been for like a day or two where they've hit 30s. I don't know. I think they'd be fine. I think if you brumated a hog, let's say at like 39 for 60 days, it should be fine. I just don't want to do it. But it should be completely okay. Mostly 45 to 55. That's good, Trinity.
Yeah, that range, I'm like mentally, I'm like, all right, I'm cool with that. Kind of like when you mentioned, you're like, oh, 86 is okay for a little bit. In my mind, I'm like, all right, it's been like 6 hours. I got to move them. I was like, that's.
Yeah. But they'll be okay. Those eggs will be okay.
Yeah. But with her and saying like you got down to 39, that's not going to hurt the animal. It's just going to be very, very slow and cold. But
exactly. Yeah, in the wild, I think they're getting down into the upper 30s and 40s like all the time during brumation. That makes that's why they're able to go so long for a brumation period too. And then also they have to know when to come out, so they can't go so deep down where there's really no temperature fluctuations. They're going so deep into these burrows where it's warm enough, and then as it gets colder and that cold hits them more, then they move down a little more. Then once that cold backs up, then they come back up with it, and they stage while in these abandoned rodent burrows. So,
which is cool. I mean, if you think about that, that is kind of its own natural intelligence. Like, to literally know without having like a cognitive ability to process exactly what's going on, how to like gauge that stuff. Like people don't kind of give them credit like in that regard because they don't see it as the same intelligence like say a human would have, but like they know for a fact to do these things on their own in the wild, which is like incredible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if you take a hognose outside on a cooler day, a lot of times they'll start trying to bury down. I've done that before, and it's like they instinctively want to go down to the ground when it's cold. That makes sense. And so yeah, that's just millions of years of evolution. Evolving to adapt to this prairie habitat. And Elise is starting to brumate now. You sound crazy like me, Elise, breeding really outside the season.
I just put down 2 for brumation today. So.
Did you?
Yeah.
All right, I'm not alone. We're not alone, everybody.
F1 female from Kevin Rhodes, and then a snow female. So.
What are you going to breed that F1 to?
Several options, Jeff. Several options. So potentially the Arctic left toffee, just to immediately start doing just that stuff with a F1, start outcrossing. Because one thing in lab toffee that I know for a fact is that there's pretty much like 3 lines of it, and it's all inbred.
Yeah, I know. You told me back
together. So, because like if there's one person that knows about lab toffee in this hobby, like the goings of it, it's probably me at this point. Just because of how many people I've reached out to and talked to about it, because of how much I have. And the general consensus is it's literally like the lines are from like 2 general lines, and there's then a 3rd one that people are sort of working out, but it's just getting crossed back to the first 2, which is not good. So that's the first one I considered was the Arctic left toffee, because I want to start outcrossing that. But also I have the purple extreme red male from you, which would be cool to start outcrossing. So that would be cool. Interesting. But
you can do the Arctic left toffee, then save him for the next season too.
Yeah, see, that's like there's something out because I do kind of want the first pairing to be with the purple extreme red what's it called? Conda female from you too, with that male. Because that's gonna be a really cool pair. I mean, Kremlin and is like he stands out so crazy. And you gave me him. That was crazy. That was the even crazier part. I was just working on a rack one day.
Yeah, you were working on a rack. I was like, here, have this guy. I like his
You
name.
know?
Kremlin's. I love that name.
Yeah, he's. I was just looking and I opened the tub and I was like, what is this guy? Because he's got so much contrast. It's not very normal for them of that quality to be like so not flecked up. So it's cool to see like that white background. But you said you have a brother that looks like Kremlin, so you got a Kremmeister 2 or something.
I
like
do.
that.
I got a Krem or two running around.
But the one thing I've struggled with is that I also have the Purple Extreme Red Yeti male from you. I kind of have too many males now that that are good that I could use because I could use
Good
the
thing.
Sunburst 66 Hetty male or a Lemon Ghost, like the Lemon Ghost male from you. It's like there's a lot of different options. Like that's the tough thing. Like the F1. I mean, she's a pretty one too. So it's like there's a lot of stuff to do. She's kind of got lighter colors, so kind of makes me like want to lean towards working Arctic into her and stuff like that. So I definitely think it's good though to have an F1 at least, you know, start outcrossing a little bit, get newer blood into the genes because you can constantly change it up with projects over the years.
I forgot that you can highlight comments.
You can what?
Highlight comments. I should have been doing this earlier. We can highlight comments. Like, I'll give you an example. And we were just talking about this. At least.
Oh, look, it pops up on the screen. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I could do that. I forgot. I gotta remember to do that for next time.
Jeff's a boomer. I gotta come out to the Super Show. I live in Rhode Island. That Super Show is super far.
It is. You're the exact opposite side of the country.
I don't know if people know where Rhode Island is, but it is right next to Massachusetts and Connecticut, which is quite far.
Yeah. Well, there's super shows in the future. You get plane tickets to LAX sometimes for a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that's 2,800 miles away, I'm pretty sure. Flying to you is like not too terrible. Driving, I think, to you is like 8 hours, but flying is pretty simple. That one time, what was it, 2 times ago or the last time? 2 times ago that I came out. That was terrible. And stuff. That was miserable. Then I got there like 7 hours late. That was
Oh yeah, that was a brutal one.
Yeah, that was terrible. Yeah, that was not fun. You have a vague idea of where Rhode Island is. Yep, pretty much everyone has a vague idea of where Rhode Island is. Because that's exactly how small it is. I'm pretty sure it's smaller than Hawaii.
Yeah, you can walk from one end to the other probably in a day.
Yeah, it's 60 hours to drive across the state. Or 60 minutes, hours. Geez, 60 minutes. 60 hours.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you had 24 hours, you could easily walk it in a day from one end to the other.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Not too bad. Oh, wait. Yeah, let me see. All right. $48 miles from north to south.
What's the record time somebody's ran across Rhode Island? Somebody's done that.
All right, how much do you think it is?
Oh man, what's the fastest? 3 hours.
Damn, 2 hours 51 minutes. You were close.
Okay.
You were actually like almost spot on.
I took a slight guess on like, well, how fast is somebody running a mile? And he said it's 45 miles. I'm like, triathlon person as this. I thought maybe to take a little longer, but that was just a kind of a wild guess there. So you can run. So if you're really fast at a record time, you can run across Rhode Island in just under 3 hours.
So theoretically, if I had no car, I could technically run to the hub in an hour and a half.
Yeah, you could.
About halfway. So I'd be like, all right, well, shipping costs a little bit extra. Why? I'm walking.
Yeah. You just put them in a backpack and put them out and just go for it. Oh, that'd be tough.
That would be miserable.
That'd be very miserable. That'd be terrible. All right, Brandon. We've been at this for almost 3 hours.
Oh my goodness. You know that happens when we talk. So
I think we could go for another 3 hours easily. But
probably.
I want to go and get something to eat.
Oh, I was supposed to eat before we came on this.
Oh, you were?
Whoops. Well, no, I told Avery I was going to make food before I got on, and I just didn't.
Oh, so. She probably had to say, well, I think she just went right to sleep, though.
I think she's probably asleep. She's probably got work in the morning. I'm going to probably harass.
You listen to it, Clint. You got in late. You're the first person he's heard of being from Rhode Island.
Well, that's because I think there's a population of like 1.1 million people here, which is smaller than certain towns and cities in Texas and other places. So
Delaware, I rarely hear anybody from Delaware.
Isn't is it Hugh Wall from Delaware, or is that Maryland?
I think so. I think Albert and Hugh are both from there.
Where's Albert from? I haven't talked to Albert in a little bit. I think
Delaware.
One of those two. One of the two. Delaware and Maryland are those two where you're like, do they exist?
Maryland, I feel like comes up pretty decently.
With that,
Delaware, Rhode Island, Maine is
Rhode Island common. Is like what?
Yeah.
So for here, people talk about Maine all the time. The real states that don't exist are North and South Dakota. They don't. Name one person that really is from North or South Dakota.
I know. I've never met anyone. And I go up there and I do shipments in North and South Dakota.
But is it real? Have you been there?
I have.
Oh shit.
I call them Northern Dakota and Southern Dakota.
Well, I mean, fine, all right, but I've never actually been further west than Ohio. Actually, now that I think
really,
about it.
Holy shit! You really should go to a super show.
I probably have to eventually. That's what I get for living all the way in one of the founding friggin' colonies.
I can't believe the furthest west you've been is Ohio. I live like fucking 7.5, 8 hours from the Atlantic Ocean.
That's where I live.
Yeah, you live on the Atlantic. How far are you from the ocean?
25 minutes.
You ever walk there? No, just
no, genuinely. I mean, from when I was like, down in the south. Like, so the thing about Narragansett, Newport, all of those, it's like you can literally walk to the beach if you live within 3 miles of it. It's like we have the most beaches out of like almost every single friggin' state in New England. It's like literally half of our friggin' thing is an island. Like Providence is an island. It's connected by bridges, surrounded by stuff. And then we have other islands in the like Block Island. Like 10 minutes to the Pacific Ocean is a little bit nicer.
That's pretty nice. Clint keeps saying he's from Montana. And then Wyoming seems fake. Wyoming, you get fine hognose there. Wyoming is not fake at all.
No. Oregon, I got customers from Oregon, so I like Oregon. Oregon seems like a cool place.
It is. I've been there. I like it.
I played a game in high school a lot, the Oregon Trail. Or not high school. That was like elementary school. That was a fun game, where you would just die because you didn't know how to play the game. And they're like, you got sepsis. You made it 3 days. Thanks for playing Oregon Trail.
I remember that game. I think Chantel said, best part of my Friday night right here. That was very at the beginning of the chat. I missed that. That was very nice comment, though.
Thank you. How to tell if a state is real? Does it have hognose?
That is...
Actually, Rhode Island, so I'm not legally allowed to own Eastern hognose because they're endemic, which sucks, but you can have a permit.
Yeah, it's good. How do you say Oregon, Trinity? Oregon?
Oregon?
Oregon.
No, isn't it Oregon?
I think it's Oregon.
Because the word Oregon. But you have to combine it because it's Oregon.
Oregon.
No, it's Oregon.
Oregon.
All right, now we're just babbling at this point about Oregon. Oh, all right, folks. Thank you for.
We're gonna call it. Thanks for coming on and chatting, Brandon. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again.
I appreciate you. Always.
Yeah.
can never end up talk about hognoses and stuff like that.
Of course. Yeah, this could have went on forever. We kept taking breaks. If we kept taking breaks and just coming back, we could actually probably do this for like 7, 10, 12 hours.
Yeah, but at the same time, I genuinely feel like people probably would stay and just keep talking. But also, I think both of us said we probably need some food and stuff like that.
Yeah, I need a snack. I might take a nap. I just got a bunch of hognose eggs. I had to stay up for it, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna eat a bit.
I don't even know. I'm hoping I got a couple more clutches coming. You know, if these girls want to do. That's like the other two. I just sit there with my clutches and I just like am. I don't expect anything. That's the best part about I think like being a first-time breeder for some people, which I think more people should do, is just not expect anything. Because when my first clutches, I sat there and I was like, all right, I'm only going to get 6 eggs and they're all going to be normals. And might get a conda, and I was like planning for all of these like low things. And then I ended up hitting a storm cloud 50 albino.
That was cool.
Two sable condas, 50 het albino, 66 het storm, and a xanthic conda, 66 het storm, 50 albino, and a xanthic that ended up dying out of the egg. But unfortunately, it happens with things. But it's like, that out of a triple het conda to a double het recessive is like incredible odds. Like you could attest for that. Getting 2 sable condas, an xanthic conda, and a storm cloud. Although it was a double clutch, but a total of I think it was like 13 eggs. That's really good odds.
Good. And then this year, I think you got 16 from that same female.
16 from the same female, more than she had last year from both, and she had 10 the first clutch. So her first clutch this year, she made 16.
Yeah, perfect. That's a good sign that you'll get to 1 in 16, that you have 16 eggs.
That is, or you get 16 normal. But either way, I'm just happy that it's there.
Yeah, Avery back, and then Julie wants us to do a food review. We could post that separately. We'd have to find something to eat. I have the kimchi from Susie Moon. I already gave it like a 9.7. That's homemade though.
Oh, Avery loves kimchi too.
So. I know, the white kimchi. Yeah, the white kimchi is really good for your digestive tract. It's good with everything. White kimchi, you can put it on pizza. It goes with everything. I really feel like white kimchi goes with almost anything. Obviously, it's not going to go with cereal or anything like that, but real food.
That cereal thing just reminded me of someone binging with Babish. They're a good food review person, but they rated Captain Crunch a 4 out of 10, and I just can't. I can't accept that. That's
what would you give Captain Crunch?
Like a 7 or an 8 at least. It's a staple. Captain Crunch is delicious.
Yeah, but doesn't it scrape the roof of your mouth?
Yeah, after you eat like the 3rd bowl, which is why it's delicious. But giving it a 4 on how delicious it is, like, no. He rated Lucky Charms higher than Captain Crunch.
Oh, Lucky Charms is bullshit.
Lucky Charms is bullshit. Exactly. So,
what did he rate Lucky Charms at?
He rated them at like a 7 or an 8.
Oh, that guy's all fucked up. Who is this guy?
Binging with Babish. He's like a really high, is he like a chef? I don't know if he's a chef or a cook, but he's like a really high on the YouTube, like 10 million subscriber, like popular channel. Yeah.
What's he called? Like, Binging with Babish?
Binging with Babish. And he like makes really incredible food and like does food reviews and like knows about food and is rating like that. And he's like, he looked what's it called? What are they called? He looked at Fruit Loops and was like, nope, not eating that. That smells like cleaning material. Nope, and gave it like a 2. I was like, what?
How can you give it a 2 without even trying it? Just go based on the smell. And it's all processed bullshit anyway. It's not like Fruit Loops. They said Cocoa Puffs is already like the worst for you out of all of them. Fruit Loops.
Oh, and Cookie Crisp, which I love. He rated a 4. And I was like, how do you rate Cookie Crisp a 4? I was like, it literally just tastes like cookies and milk. I was like, that's just... he did rate Captain Crunch #1, or not Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch #1, which I think everyone agrees is like pretty goated as a cereal.
Pretty good, I guess. They all have the same fucking ingredients. Cinnamon Toast might be the only one that doesn't have a different ingredient because they put fucking cinnamon in it.
He fucking put Frosted Mini Wheats above what's it called? He put them at like 5 or 6. He put them above.
Frosted mini wheats though is pretty good. I feel like that's like the cheese pizza. If you're going to compare cereals to pizza types, it's like the cheese pizza kind of like that's like an original.
He still rated it above Captain Crunch, and like Frosted Flakes and Honey Nut Cheerios,
That's weird because if you didn't
Cheerios and everything.
Crunch's texture, the mini wheats, or even like you ever get the wheats? Like I remember getting them as a kid a couple times, like the giant ones, and you only put like 2 in the bowl. And then you'd soak it, and it would like absorb all the milk.
Fix. Yeah. That's what he tried that, and it like turned into like oatmealish. Yeah, he was like, He's like, this sucks. He's like, I don't even want to chew this. British people are terrible because it's a British invention. So he's like, this is awful. So he gave that one the worst out of all of them.
It's fun. It's different. What's wrong with this guy? I thought this guy was a foodie. He sounds like a fucking pansy when it comes to trying fucking cereals.
He doesn't eat cereals. Like he rated Reese's Puffs pretty high. What else?
They're all the same fucking ingredient. It's like processed wheat and sugar. They should all be getting roughly kind of within the same wheelhouse, really.
He rated Kix in the same thing. Like, he rated Kix in the same thing as like Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios, Captain Crunch, and like he rated them a 4. Have you ever had Kix? They're terrible.
Kix I've had Kix in a long time.
It's like you're eating packing peanuts, except they took those packing peanuts and flavored them slightly like corn.
That sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good.
Oh, the wind just slammed the door. You gotta love that. I kept thinking Avery was shutting it on me to mess with me. Yeah, Kix are terrible.
Cereal's supposed to be really bad for you.
Yeah, cereal isn't the best for you. Cinnamon Toast Crunch milk is the thing. Or do you mean like literally like the milk of
the milk afterwards that has like the extra sugar and then the cinnamon flavor?
Well, because I know all of these companies now make like oh, this is like friggin' cinnamon churro milk flavor or whatever. It's like yeah, Honey Nut Cheerios are delicious, and he rated them like a 3.
He's a senator. Who's a senator? The guy trying to fucking cereal?
Binging with Babish? Nah, he's just some bald dude.
Yeah, what does this guy look like? A clown?
All right, I'll be honest. If you look at him here, he's not as bad as a dude as what he looks like, okay? He kind of looks a little pretentious. I don't know if it's zooming on for you.
Yeah, I can see him good enough.
But he's like a decent dude. But he just has extremely terrible taste in cereal. But he makes amazing grilled cheese sandwiches.
Does he?
Oh, yeah. He went through all the different cheeses you could use to make like 50-something grilled cheeses just to determine which ones are the best. Golden Grams? Oh, yeah. He said...
What did he say about Golden Grams?
Yeah, he said those were like a solid 5.
Those are delicious. What about Smacks? What about like Honey Smacks?
Oh, I don't think he actually had the ones with the frog on them. Yeah. I don't think
he didn't try those?
Oh, no, he did. I think those were a 4. Yeah, he rated everything terrible.
Everything terrible, sucked. But then he gave what, like a 7 or an 8?
Oh, Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms?
Yeah, Lucky Charms, like with the marshmallows.
Those are like processed, like shittiest marshmallows with fucking grade B Cheerios.
You don't eat the marshmallows, they're not that bad.
Well, yeah, the marshmallows make it terrible, though. The marshmallows are one of the worst parts.
Well, he does have a good name, Bibbling and Babbling with Babish. I mean, because the guy's fucking
Babish.
Bitching and babbling with Babish.
I'm going to the end of the video so I can see the chart that he had for official, because it's terrible. Like, I'm genuinely offended that Cookie Crisp was so low on the list because it's my favorite childhood cereal. Yeah, he is a bald hipster. He's 100% a bald hipster. But he's also really good at cooking. All right, where's the final list? Yeah, he rated Honey Bunches of Oats as like one of the best ones ever. That's how you know he's crazy. All right, hold on. Where is this list?
I'm going to get Honey Bunches of Oats now. Hey, you know what everybody needs to try is Lactaid milk. I'm not even kidding you. It's way better than regular milk. I got Lactaid, whole milk. Holy crap. It tastes way better than regular milk.
Really?
Lactose. Yeah, it's pretty impressive because I got it because like my stomach was sensitive, and so I was like, well, Crystal wanted to get milk. I was like, she's like, well, we'll get the lactate one. I was like, it's gonna taste like crap. I was like, yeah, fine, get it. She goes, well, I'm just using it to make this for ingredients. And so I tried it. We tried it by itself. We both like it way better than regular milk. It's way better. It's like sweeter and has like I don't know, just like a better taste.
Well, Avery and I are probably a little lactose intolerant, so we should probably try that.
Try the lactate milk, man. It tastes better. My mom asked the cost. I think it's
We
like
use almond milk stuff. That's not terrible.
Gabriel said he loves lactate, and he's from Texas.
All right, so 2 is Weetabix. 2 out of 10, which is what you mentioned. Weetabix is that. That's terrible. The thing you take and you put it in the Wheaties. That's called Weetabix.
I'd say that's a 6.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You're gonna laugh at his line. So only 2 are above an 8. So you got Cinnamon Toast Crunch at a 9, then you got 8, which is Honey Bunches of Oats and Reese's Puffs. Those are his 8s.
Reese's Puffs is like supposed to. It's one of the best. That one's supposed to be the most unhealthy for you out of all the cereals. Is Reese's Puffs?
Is it
healthy? Yes, because the sugar content.
Unhealthy?
Yeah, they said.
Oh yeah, it's so
bad.
All
cereal is pretty unhealthy, but they said the most unhealthy is the Reese's Peanut Butter Puffs is the most unhealthy.
All right, that's fair though. It probably is just straight up chocolate and stuff.
All right. Rue works at Sprouts and he gets all the fancy milks. Y'all ever heard of Don Lezayan milk? That Dan Zeisen. Dan Zeisen milk.
No.
I've never heard of Dan Zeisen milk. I don't think I'd want to try a milk that has a guy's name on it. They should be like, this is Dan's milk. Just try. I want to just call it Zeisen milk or L.A. Lazai or something like, I don't know, make it some fancy like French sounding word. They do mostly seasonal milk, like cotton candy flavored and eggnog. Eggnog is good. Try eggnog with cinnamon toast.
I'm not drinking cotton candy milk.
What about eggnog with cinnamon toast crunch? That sounds good.
That sounds delicious, actually. So cornflakes, Rice Krispies, Kix, Kashi, Life, and Cookie Crisp are all 4s.
Yeah.
You put those all in the same bunch. So he thinks Fruity Pebbles, Captain Crunch, Honey Smacks, Frosted Flakes, and Honey Nut Cheerios are all worse than Lucky Charms and Apple Jacks, which he has rated at a 7.
Apple Jacks is a 7? I think maybe because I could see like maybe the apple, but that's all artificial. Like he's basing it on
Apple Jacks don't taste good.
So he's like doing that, so he can't. Anyway, yeah, I don't know what that guy's doing. Lucky Charms is like a 3.2.
Yeah, and he has it as 7. I don't know if anyone's bit into a Lucky Charm marshmallow recently. That's not a child, but
it's
like
the world's shittiest marshmallow.
Good luck trying to make your teeth not feel like you just rubbed sandpaper on them, because that's what it feels like. They're not good.
It's the most chalky marshmallow, and yeah, that's like the lowest grade cereal, I feel like.
Yeah, so it's just like this. His other videos are great. Just that for some reason brought it up in my head where I was like, man, this guy's we got to talk about his terrible taste in cereal. What cereal is best for hog noses?
Pinkies and water.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing. Yeah, Avery likes Lucky Charms, but that's with water and stuff. That's different. Or not water. Jesus, you're saying stuff. That's what
Avery like, but that's with water. It's different, man. God damn. Can you imagine Lucky Charms with water? That'd make it even worse. Watching that water become slightly stained by Lucky Charms, like, son of a bitch.
We're in Jackson Pollock painting afterwards.
Avery just confirmed she put water. She doesn't like water. Oh yeah, Cheerios for substrate. I have used Cheerios for substrate for Hognose before.
Oh, I've seen that. That was funny. What cereal is best for Hognose? I don't know. That just reminded me of the picture that person has of their Hognose biting like a ham and cheese sandwich, and I'm like, what the fuck? You seen that?
Yeah, I saw that. I know the guy that posted it is pretty problematic, but yeah, it's a funny post. But yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, it's like, why? Just why?
Yeah, that's probably the least problematic thing that guy's ever done, actually.
Oh boy. Root beer milk. All right, that might be decent. That's
like root beerish. Arizona orange, candy cane.
Well, because
hog.
root beer milk is already kind of just like halfway to a root beer float, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Avery misses you because we've been talking about cereal so long.
All right. Time to go eat some cereal or something.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in for the cereal episode. This has been Brandon and I talking about cereal. Have a good night.
Cereal later.
See you later. Thanks, Brandon. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.